Welcome to Hoopsville, everybody. Presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and NABC studios. Hope you are enjoying the programming this year. We are in our first full week, as it were, here in basketball land of 2016 side of basketball play. Obviously into conference action for the most part with everybody. Hope you're enjoying the first week. It has certainly been crazy, as the rest of the season has been. Of course, the first week of January also is the first week that Hoopsville is up and running in its entirety, as it were. We've been doing Sunday and Thursday shows for the first time all year round, but because of holiday breaks and other commitments, we haven't been able to get into the stride of Sundays and Thursdays every week. That now starts. We are well into it now in the first week, and we will go this way the rest of the season, except for some technicalities. One of those technicalities happens to be tonight. This show, Thursdays, is not live. If you have clicked on the show, you might have noticed that already, unless you just weren't paying attention, and I can understand if you weren't. But this show has all been pre-produced. Reason being, I have a very rare obligation at my 20-year job of public address announcing my alma mater, Goucher basketball. Landmark Conference has a rare 3 set of games this week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, for many reasons, all of them based on academics. And as a result, I actually have to be at my alma mater to announce a game. And of course, it's against Catholic, who is our rival and hasn't been a rival for a while. That's a story for another time. But nonetheless, I am busy with that game. So we put this show together so in a non-live, but make it feel like it's live tradition in the business, we call it live to tape. Anyway, this show is not live, and neither will be next Thursdays, as we will be heading off to the NCAA convention for the second year in a row. As a result, we got to put something together, and we hope to put something nice together for next week. Obviously, details to come. But as we're out there at the NCAA convention, by the way, we will be catching some Division III basketball, mainly in part the SCAC. I know Trinity is in town in San Antonio, so that's an easy one to hit. We'll see what else we get to when we're out there. We haven't really booked our schedule yet. We are booking. We also have some responsibilities in our work life and D3 sports life at the NCAA convention that we need to attend to as well, but we hope to capture a few games, maybe not repeat Trinity on 2 different nights, but if I have no other choice, that will be the decision. We'll be back here, though, Sunday evening for a live show. It will be certainly Texas heavy, as we'll have a number of interviews from out there in Texas, both basketball, maybe NCAA related. We'll also have some just NCAA interviews to do, which we will post in another manner of speak, but it'll be a little bit heavy and a little bit pre-taped, but we'll also try and have some live elements a week and a half from now. Of course, this Sunday coming up, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, will be live. We're looking forward to that, as we always do, and we hope you are as well. You can always interact with us via Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Let's take a look at who our guests are tonight. The show's been put together as late into the week as we possibly could so that we wouldn't interfere necessarily with anything that may have happened, so the show doesn't feel too dated. For most, if not all of our guests, they have not or will not play by the time this interview has taken place, from when we did interview them. One of them will probably be taking place simultaneously or have just gotten off the court. And as a result, a lot of what we're talking about now is as live as we can be for a Thursday, as late into the Thursday as we could to turn this around for all of you. So if we have missed some storylines, we apologize. We'll catch up with them on Sunday. But our guests, we will start with Muhlenberg women's basketball. The 10th-ranked Mules, coached by Ron Rohn, will join us, talk about a 26-day layoff. Yeah, you heard me right. 26 days between games. Talk to Coach Rohn about the challenges of that. Also talk to him about the challenges of the Centennial Conference. There are some things that are completely on their head. Some teams at the top expected. Some teams at the top are not there. Some teams who weren't supposed to be at the top are there. It's a little bit wacky in the Centennial women's race already. We'll talk to him about that breakdown, as along with another team in the Centennial who's not playing conference games. We'll talk to him about the dynamics of that, and a very fashion-savvy alum of his program. Then we'll head out west to what is apparently a rainy California. I know you probably have to be there to believe it, but it is raining in California, but that doesn't lessen the spirits of Cal Lou's women's basketball program and their head coach, Lindsay Goldblat. We'll talk to her about the great start for Cal Lou and the race atop the SCIAC Of course, that race may be a two-horse race in this case, but Kalalua having a great season. We'll talk about the big wins against Northwest Conference teams and a big nearly win against the Northwest Conference as well to start the season. Also talk about playing out on that island in California. Then we'll head back east to Buffalo, and we'll head to Buffalo State, switch sides to men's basketball, talk to Fazri Ansari, the head coach of the Bengals, about their great start and another conference race that is completely chaotic, and that is the SUNYAC race. I expected this to be about a 2 to 3 horse race. You could argue it's 5 or 6 right now. It could be that way the rest of the season. Some would say maybe in the middle there at 4. But Buffalo State has made its presence known with some big wins early this season, playing very good basketball. We'll talk to Coach Ansari about his squad and how he sees things shaping up the rest of the way, including the craziness that is SUNYAC travel, which they will experience unfortunately and luckily this weekend. You'll understand why. He'll even share a story as to the craziest trip they ever had returning from a SUNYAC school. Then we'll head back west to Ohio, and Hiram's Chris Kibler will join us on the show. Hiram, another team that wasn't supposed to be in the conversation. They weren't picked to do very well in the conference. They're leading the conference with a win over Ohio Wesleyan. Of course, we're talking about the NCAC. We'll talk to Coach about his conference, about his team, about their start, what the expectations are, and why this team could be a little scary due to its youth. By the way, all 4 teams are scary due to their youth. Kind of the youth movement, as it were, tonight here on Hoopsville. So that's all ahead of us. But we're not going to forget some of the bigger stuff, like Augustana versus Elmhurst. Oh, yeah. Did you see that game on Wednesday in men's basketball? Number 1 at number 5, and it was on par with Oklahoma, Kansas the other night in Division I land. Terrific overtime game against 2 heavyweights. Elmhurst certainly showed up to play at their home arena against the number 1 team. If you read my Top 25 blog, which I admit came out a little late, it came out on Wednesday evening. We finally got it posted at the beginning of that game, interestingly, timing-wise. Not very dressed up. That was half the problem with getting it out. We normally dress it up a little bit more. Anyway, in that blog, I said I did not think Augustana could get through the conference play unscathed. This certainly was one of those games I thought would trip them up, though I had a feeling they could maybe get past this one and maybe Elmhurst would surprise them at home. Kind of a trade-off of road victories for those 2 teams. Augustana loses this one instead. But listen, I didn't think Augustana was going to get through it nonetheless, but it was terrific. And it came down really to a final shot in regulation that forced overtime by not being made, but being made. Well, watch this. Pat Coleman was there, and he had a courtside seat to the final play. As you can see, so close. Referees did a tremendous job, despite the mobbing of the court, to gather themselves, talk it over. They clearly at least had reservations of whether the shot should count in the first place. It was really tough to see in live action, though. My wife, who was watching the game with me, turned to me immediately and said, I don't think that counted. They even went to a video review. Elmhurst wisely had at least the ability to rewind their live stream at a monitor directly at courtside, and it didn't take long for the refs to call off the shot. Went into overtime, and listen, this was a back-and-forth game that was tremendous because Augustana would take a lead, then Elmhurst would come back. Elmhurst would get a big lead, especially in the second half, and Augustana would come back. Augustana got a nice sizable lead in overtime, and Elmhurst came back and took the lead. Augustana, I will admit, didn't look great on that final possession trying to tie or take the lead. It almost looked like no one wanted to take the final shot, which was a little surprising. I think they had some opportunities. Nonetheless, Pat had it. Well, I'm not going to show it, but they had a chance with 0.6 seconds to throw it down the length of the court. It hit the rafters, believe it or not, a little too high. And it's not like Elmhurst's ceiling is that low, but a little too high on the pass down court for Augustana. Though I was watching the video, I think Elmhurst's player actually got his hand on it, which wouldn't have mattered. It just would have ended the game sooner instead of Elmhurst throwing the ball in to end the game instead. But after a tremendous game, and congratulations to Elmhurst on the big victory. Afterward, Pat caught up with a few people. And he started with Kyle Wurst, the senior guard for Elmhurst.
Here from Fagnall Hall at Elmhurst College in Elmhurst, Illinois, the end of the battle between number 1 Augustana and number 5 Elmhurst, and it was won by Elmhurst, which defeated the Vikings by the score of 77-75. And I'm joined by Kyle Wiest, who scored 26 points for the Blue Jays in a game that went to a crazy overtime, which we'll talk about in a second. But you had a stretch in the about the middle to the end of the first half where you were very dominant. Things were falling for you. I think you had 16 points at the half. How did things look for you in the first half?
I just felt really comfortable, and my team and my coaches always do a great job of telling me to be aggressive. I'm conscious of being selfish, but they tell me that I'm never being selfish. They always encourage me to be aggressive and that it is best for the team. So I just thank those guys, and they clean up a lot of my misses and really bail me out a lot of the time. So all the credit to them. I just happened to be hitting tonight, but it could have been any one of us.
There was a stretch in the second half where you guys were up 5 or so, and then Hunter Hill scores about 8 consecutive points by himself. Life seemed to come out of the building a little bit. You guys were struggling to find shots. How'd you guys turn that around?
The biggest thing for us, we just had to calm down a little bit and deal with the full court pressure. I don't know how many turnovers we had tonight, but I know that the press got to us quite a bit. 21, yeah. So the biggest thing for us was just slowing down and getting some ball reversals. We were just bringing it right up the floor and attacking right away, and didn't really have anybody in rebounding position or anything like that. So once we settled down, swung the ball, and got to the line a little bit, things opened up for us quite a bit.
End of regulation. We looked at, the officials came over and reviewed it on the live stream, which I'm not exactly sure is part of the rule book, but whatever. I went back and did a still frame out of it, and it looked like that call was correct that when they overturned it. But what was it like for you guys? What did you think on the floor?
Well, really, I was just upset that I missed the easy tip, and I don't know how that kind of fell out, but Will was there, and we thought that he made it at the buzzer, but when we came over to the bench, we all just had the mindset that we needed to be ready for this game to be extended, because you never know what can happen, and when you leave it up to the refs, you like I said, you never really know. So we were ready for the extended period. Yeah,
because it's really easy for someone to lose focus when a call doesn't go your way right there.
Right. We just sat down and already started coming up with a plan. We weren't living in the moment too much. We were just figuring out what the next step was.
All right, so you guys face this kind of stuff practically week in and week out, right, in the CCIW, and you've played a pretty good non-conference schedule. But this coming into your senior year, obviously some expectations heaped on you guys back in October and November. How do you feel you guys have dealt with it so far?
I think you never want to say a loss is good, but that loss to Benedictine early in the year really kind of helped us to refocus and really get back to our roots. We are at our best when we are just playing really hard, defending really well, and rebounding really well. And we got away from that for a little bit, but we really refocused after that game, and we know that we are one of the better teams in the country, and we want to show it every night. We have an experienced group, and really the sky's the limit, but we have to stay grounded, and we really have to do the things that got us here in the first place.
I know, super early going. Obviously, you guys have 12 conference games left and then the conference tournament. So, knowing that you guys have this big win under your belt so far, you got to realize that there's a long way to go.
Right. Well, and the worst thing that could happen is, you come off a game like this and then you have a letdown to, I'm but in no means trying to say that Milliken's not a good team. But we go down to Milliken on Saturday for our first conference away game. And, we need to just stay focused, bring the same intensity. And, if we keep that mindset every single game, we should be okay.
Kyle Wiest, all he did was go 7 of 15 from the floor, 4 for 5 from downtown, 8 for 8 from the line, en route to 26 points as his team defeats Augustana 77-75. Back to Hoopsville.
Thanks, Pat. Many people know that if you're on the D3 boards, I've been chatting it up as to who number one or who should be better, Benedictine or Elmhurst, on the Top 25 blog. You can have many arguments. I have had Elmhurst ahead of Benedictine despite Benedictine's win over Elmhurst and being undefeated. This certainly makes it harder. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But you got to give your hats off to John Baines, who's assistant coach at Elmhurst for 10 years, now in his third season. Elmhurst kind of showed up to the party a year early last year everyone was kind of thinking this would be a special year, but last year ended up being pretty special. They are continuing that on. And after the game, Pat Coleman caught up with John Baines as well.
Pat Coleman back here at Elmhurst, joined by John Baines, the third-year head coach of Elmhurst. His Blue Jays defeated top-ranked Augustana 77-75 tonight in overtime. So, Coach, that's it. You guys can just mail in the rest of the season, right? You've achieved everything that needs to be achieved, right?
No, that was a high-level game today. I think we had two really, really good teams today, and we're really close. We knew we would be, and we had two close games last year. So, our games with them are always going to be like this, I think.
How do you keep the team focused, knowing that you now have 86% of the conference schedule still in front of you or so?
Hopefully, we got 9 seniors on this group, and they've been through this before. They know that sometimes it's not a game like this. It's that one that you go on the road that you're supposed to win, and supposed to win, as you say.
Right.
But I think our guys will stay focused. They're a mature group.
Tell us a little bit about just the grind in the CCIW, because you have this game practically out of the gate, right? Game 2 out of 14. You have everybody left on your conference schedule, most of them twice.
That's the best thing about our league. I really do believe if you can be good in our league, you're going to be one of the better teams in the nation. And I think that's the fun part of it. You don't have to think about what the gauge is. The gauge is our league, and if you can be good, and I think we're where we need to be. If we can make it through the test here, I think we'll be good enough to go as far as we need to go.
You guys had some pretty high expectations heaped on you at the beginning of the season, and I'm sure you had some pretty high expectations for yourself. Come out of the gate early on in the season, Benedictine gets you guys. How did that, how did that feel? How did that come about?
Benedictine's a good team. We didn't play real well that day, but Bunks had his guys playing great, and they're a good team. So I think our one loss was a quality loss. I think this was obviously a really quality win. I felt like our game versus Wesleyan tonight was a quality win. Can't worry about all that stuff. You just got to play the next one and win.
Yeah, I mean, for you guys, you mentioned that just knowing that if you're a quality team in this conference, that you're going to be a quality team nationally. Probably in any given year now, the way the tournament's going, probably 3 teams from this league are going to go to the tournament, or at least should go to the NCAA tournament. But how do you? I guess first of all, how do you kind of prepare over the long haul, and then also that conference tournament tacked on at the end?
It's I think in our league, I'm really happy that lately we've been getting 3 teams in. And I've like last year, North Central was a 4th team, and they could have easily been in the tournament and been good. I said I'm really happy now that we're starting to see that we're getting our 2nd, our 3rd, and people are talking about our 4th team now with the Wisconsin League in our region. This is a stacked region. I mean, the best teams in the nation are playing here, and I think we all need to get in. To be honest with you.
Kyle Weiss, fantastic night tonight. Actually, you guys, he shot 8 for 8 from the foul line, but you guys were 21 of 28 from the foul line. Tell us a little bit about Kyle and some of the rest of your guys.
Kyle is an unbelievable scorer because he finds a lot of ways. He can shoot the 3, gets to the line, he can offensive board. His game's really changed, and the best part about him, he's an unselfish guy. He's led us in assists the last couple of years. He's a guy that we could really feed him a lot more, and he could score 20-some, but we've got talented players, and he's taken a step back and scoring 17 or 18 and leading us. So he's a preseason All-American, and rightfully so.
I talked with Weiss. I talked with Pat Coleman. I had to talk to Pat Coleman. But both of them talked about the break between regulation and overtime, right? You had a call that didn't go your way, and that's always an opportunity for kids to get inside their head and for there to be mental breakdowns. But you guys came out, scored first in overtime, and almost didn't look back.
Yeah, like I said, we got a mature group. I think a lot of groups would have been if that call doesn't go our way, we're done. And I'm really happy with our guys. Every coach says it, but our guys really are resilient. We had that triple overtime game versus St. Norbert, and we kept fighting back, and that's just kind of the character of this group. And so I just said, hang in there. We've been here before.
So 3rd year as a head coach, you've had a lot of these guys, obviously all 3 years, and I know you were an assistant before that. What's it like to have, so much consistency, I guess, on the roster over the course of kind of getting your head coaching career started?
Sure. This group's grown, and that's really unusual. Sometimes there's a lot of moving parts with a program. This group really has had a chance to get to know me, and I've got to get to know them. And now I think we work, and our coaching staff, we work unbelievably together. Our coaching staff stayed together for 3 years. We're just really comfortable, and the guys give me suggestions, and when they know when I'm on them, in certain times. They know where I'm coming from. It's just a level of comfort that I think makes it fun to play with us.
Well, we came into the week talking about Augustana's 8 seniors, and we get to the middle of the week talking about the 9 seniors from Elmhurst as they help the Blue Jays defeat top-ranked Augustana 77-75 in overtime.
Thanks again, Pat. Appreciate it. Nice to have Pat go out there, get some interviews for us, and send them back. A little nice twist that we don't normally get here on Hoopsville unless I've done it myself, and that seems a little weird, doesn't it? Me tossing to myself. I've done it. Anyway, I digress. Back to my thoughts about Elmhurst, Benedictine, and now kind of Augustana. There's been conversations on some of the boards about the fact that, and I freely put my ballot out there, as everybody knows. I will go on the boards and say, here's what I did, here's what my thinking is. And people like to bash that occasionally. I'm fine with the bashing. I'm fine with it. I actually will listen to a lot of comments and see if maybe I'm missing something. I have just felt that Elmhurst, I have always thought going into the season, was a much better team. Benedictine wasn't really on my radar. I had a good year last year, didn't make the NCAA tournament, but they're not in a conference that we really think is a national power, or at least the top team doesn't tend to get into the national conversation, especially in the NCAA tournament. But they are clearly on a roll. They have gone 5-0 in their non-conference play, all against CCIW. They are still, as I am speaking, undefeated in their conference and could easily go undefeated the rest of the season. I don't think it will happen, but it could happen. And so a head-to-head 20-point victory against Elmhurst, many people would say, well, put them ahead of Elmhurst. I get that, but I'm not of the opinion that you go head-to-heads trump all or kind of trump all. I believe that head-to-heads give me a lot of information, and if I need to, they will be my deciding factor, and I've used that a few times this year, especially teams that are in the top 25, but not all the time. One game doesn't necessarily make a season, as we all know. It can certainly help get into the NCAA tournament, but it isn't the only part of the criteria either. So it's not really necessarily my be-all or end-all when it comes to voting. Another part of that is, let's extrapolate out, shall we? If Benedictine beat Elmhurst and Elmhurst has beaten Augustana, then in theory you're telling me Benedictine is better than both Elmhurst and Augustana. And in that theory, since my number one vote, which is to Augustana, as is everybody else's number one vote in Division III land, is to Augustana, you're telling me that arguably, ignoring Whitworth, Hope, and some other schools that will muddy this conversation a little bit, but let's just base it on those 3 teams, then Benedictine should be thus the higher-ranked team of those 3, and for argument's sake, the number one team in the country, or at least get my number one vote. I can't buy into that. Listen, Benedictine's a really good team this year, and they've proven that. I've gotten to watch them on video a little bit, and they certainly are good. Not overrated in any means. But 3 of their CCIW wins aren't exactly ones that are as good as they seem on paper. The win over Carthage is nice. The win over Wheaton is certainly good, though Wheaton, while they can rise to play an opponent, is not exactly having the best of seasons. They are inconsistent, to say the least. Illinois Wesleyan is below average by their standards. Back to my Calvin speak in the last few weeks as well. But Calvin, everyone's saying not a good team. Yeah, by Calvin standards, people. Illinois Wesleyan is at 500 roughly. That is not up to snuff for what they usually hold themselves to. Doesn't mean they're not still a good team. But if you take that down and say, okay, Illinois Wesleyan's not as good as they normally are, Wheaton is inconsistent, and Carthage is Carthage right now, that's 3 wins. And then you have a North Central win that I'm now buying into. North Central didn't exactly start the season on fire in any way, shape, or form, but they have certainly come along since then. And so that win for Benedictine over North Central, I think, is starting to look pretty good. North Central, by the way, started the season 2-3, 1-2, then 2-3, and now have been on a pretty nice streak of winning 7 of their last 8. So North Central is looking better. By the way, 7 of that last 8, that loss is to Benedictine. So that's looking better. And obviously the win over Elmhurst is solid. But I can't tell you on good faith that I think Augustana is not as good as Benedictine. That Benedictine is the better team over Augustana. And despite the win, I cannot say that Benedictine is actually better than Elmhurst. I get it's a 20-point victory. I completely understand that it's a 20-point victory. But that's in the vacuum of that one game. If we were to say, let's play 10 games out, do you really think Elmhurst is going to lose to Benedictine every single time by 20 points? I think Elmhurst wins that game a majority of the time. 7, maybe 8 out of the 10 times. That's an Elmhurst win. And if that's how I feel, watching these two teams the best I can on live video and web streams, then how can I vote them, despite a head-to-head, ahead of them? I understand the arguments the other side. And you can hate me for this opinion all you want. That's fine. Again, I'm one of 25 voters. But I've also talked to some people who know these programs better than I do. And voters, by the way, they're not voting Benedictine ahead of Elmhurst either. Or at least one of them that I know of isn't. So I can't right now say, okay, Benedictine's better than Elmhurst, which should make them better than Augustana as well, which means I should consider Benedictine for my number 1. I get they're undefeated, but I don't have confidence that Benedictine's the best team in the country. I will tease you with this. As I speak, I am actually thinking about not removing my number 1 vote from Augustana. I'll give you pause there to think about that. I may still vote Augustana number 1 next week. There's more basketball to be played, and so we can see some more results that are going to help with this decision. But I've seen Augustana in person in the last 12 months, obviously at the Final Four, and I've watched quite a bit of video of them this year. I have seen Whitworth a couple weeks ago in person. I think Whitworth's a darn good team. I think Augustana's better. Despite a loss, I think Augustana's better. Whitworth's my number 2 and undefeated. I think Augustana's still better than Hope. Hope hasn't been struggling recently, but Hope is I don't think can beat Augustana right now. And my other teams are St. Thomas and Amherst and some others, and Elmhurst, obviously. I saw St. Thomas at the beginning of the year. Granted, beginning of the year, but I saw St. Thomas at the beginning of the year. I still think Whitworth's better than St. Thomas, and if I think Augustana is better than Whitworth, you see where I'm going here. Again, I have until Monday at 5 o'clock Eastern time to make up my mind on this. But right now, just because they lost to Elmhurst, I'm not necessarily leaning away or leaning towards voting anybody else but Augustana, number 1. And if you and just think of it this way, I guarantee you I'm not the only voter who's going to consider this. We will see what happens. It's going to be very interesting Monday, top 25, and we're only halfway through the week. By the way, one more tease, Pat Coleman's not done. He actually got another interview with himself, or another Pat Coleman. It's a little confusing, but there's a Pat Coleman who interviewed a Pat Coleman. That's all I can tell you right now. You might know if you're on the inside, but if you're not, you're going to have to wait to the end of the show because that's where we're going to feature that interview. By the way, at the beginning of the show, you may have heard something rather interesting out of my mouth. I said, welcome to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. We've been teasing this for a little while. I want to formally thank WBCA for coming on board Hoopsville. The WBCA, just like the NABC, is a wonderful organization that supports its coaches. And for years, we've been trying to get a hold of the WBCA and say, hey, do you want to come on and support us? The NABC does amazing work for us, both financially a little bit. They help. To be honest with you, NABC's responsible for what was the very first version of the studio you are looking at if you're watching this online. And they've helped throughout the years. You know we have a great relationship with them, especially at the Final Four in Salem. We've tried to do the same thing with the WBCA. Just didn't work out the last few years. This year, all different, folks. WBCA coming on board to join us here on Hoopsville. So you will now hear a little bit different. Instead of what has been presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches, you will now hear, presented by D3Hoops.com, from the WBCA NABC studios. You will see some WBCA paraphernalia, possibly. You'll also see some more mentions of them throughout the show. And we are going to finally get off the ground the NABC Coaches Corner starting next Thursday. But this Sunday, we will debut the WBCA Center Court. Very much like the Coaches Corner for the NABC, it will feature a coach of a program who is doing either great work in their community or is doing extra work somewhere in the system, as it were, or is just one of those great coaches you want to talk to. We will get that chance to feature coming up this Sunday. You're going to have to wait to find out who our first Center Court nominee will be to join us here on Hoopsville. Looking forward to doing that and developing this relationship with the WBCA. There are a number of people out there to thank, and I would probably be... I'd probably be a little dumb if I go and thank them directly, but there's a few in mind specifically. I've actually talked to a number of coaches over the years on the women's side about this, and I will forget your names, but it was a conversation with Melissa Hodgson at Wheaton of Massachusetts over the summer that really got this ball rolling. whether people realize that or not. It then was another conversation with Pat Manning at Williams that really kind of tipped the rock over the cliff, as it were, and really got things rolling from there. And then at the end, it was Jack Watford, Director of Communications at the WBCA themselves. He and I have had many a conversation over the last few months, proposals back and forth, et cetera, and that finally was the tipping point. And I want to thank those three individuals in general, amongst many other women's coaches or those involved with the women's game over the last few years where I've had conversations to finally get this partnership. I am so happy to now have both coaches associations tied in and partnered with Hoopsville. We certainly like to shine the light on coaches and student athletes, and this is a great way to expand our programming in some capacity and in other ways. Now, granted, we can't get to both Holland and Salem, and that's understandable, but how about a perfect year to have the WBCA come on board? The year that we are headed to Indianapolis for the women's championship at the same site as Division I. Tentative plans, Gordon Mann and myself will be there. Things could change, but that is our hope. We don't know what we will be doing there. Kind of like Atlanta. We really didn't know what we were going to do in Atlanta until kind of the weeks leading up, but we'll figure it out. But thank you, WBCA, for coming on board. We greatly appreciate it. We will learn more about this partnership as the weeks move on. A couple quick notes. I want to remind you, coming up January 28th, Thursday, will be the Hoopsville Marathon Show. Yes, the Hoopsville Marathon Show is coming. You'll want to tune in for that. We hope you'll enjoy the programming that day. That will be in conjunction with our fundraising efforts. I know some people have been asking about that. We are into January. I've usually launched it by now or about to launch it. We are about to launch the Hoopsville fundraising efforts. We may even throw a couple extra tidbits in there. Some challenges, as it were, for people out there, and we look forward to seeing how that turns out. I've had a number of coaches say to me, we like doing this. Please continue. The first year was a major number. The second year was half that. We're going to find a nice happy medium in between that. It allows us to travel. It allows us to get more equipment. It allows us to shine a brighter light on Division III, and we hope that if you can, you will partner with that. Stay tuned for that information coming up. With that, and a very long first block, we got to get going. Ron Rohn from Muhlenberg, Lindsay Goldblat from Kowloon, Fazri Ansari from Buffalo State, and Chris Kibler from Hiram, all on deck, getting ready to join us here on Hoopsville. And first up will be Ron Rohn from Muhlenberg. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. We'll have more Hoopsville right after this.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
At the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you are enjoying the show. It's obviously not a live show tonight, as I have other responsibilities, so this is all pre-taped. If you happen to be following along right at 7 o'clock, let's just imagine it's about 7:20, and we're getting ready for our next interview. If you have any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Of course, this is Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com, out of the NABC WBCA Studios. I want to thank those two coaches, groups for supporting Hoopsville in any way that they do. Let's talk women's basketball, shall we? There's lots to talk about in women's basketball. A lot of shakeup in the top 25 this past week. Lots of teams moving up and down, but certainly some teams coming in. But there's some teams that some people may not totally get, mainly because they haven't played. There's one team that jumped out at me, and it's definitely this one. It's the Muhlenberg Mules. Imagine taking a break for the holidays, and you're still not back yet. Apparently for the Mules, they decided 26 days in the middle of the season was a perfect time for a vacation. And they took the time off, but they're still 8-0. They're now number 10 in the country, and I'm kind of curious how they're going to do in a game that is actually taking place once this show publishes. But again, we're taping everything anyway. So I go to the Skype, one of my favorite things, and we bring in our favorite man on Skype because he seems comfortable with it. It's Ron Roan from Muhlenberg. Coach, welcome back to Hoopsville, sir.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate you. By the way, beautiful setup there in the backdrop. With
they give me a nice office, you know?
Yeah, and Steve Ulrich would appreciate the banner right off the corner.
Oh, there you go. I didn't even think of that. Maybe I'll get a nice letter.
There you go. Hey, listen, 8-0, 3-0 in the conference. That's terrific. But you haven't played since December 12th. Who came up with this schedule?
That's me. Well, I mean, for us, truthfully, we usually take off, try to get a game right after exams.
Sure.
19th to 20th. There wasn't a good game for us to have there. I really don't like bringing the kids back over the Christmas holiday. I like to have them a break. And actually, instead of playing a game January 2nd, January 3rd, I think the extra practice we get in there is more beneficial for us. So all those things came into play. The other thing that came into play was that we're such a very young team this year. 1 senior, 2 juniors, I don't know how many, 5, 6 sophomores, 5, 6 freshmen. So we sort of backloaded our season somewhat in the hope that our experience would develop as the season went on.
Obviously a young team with high expectations. I think you've pretty much been in the polls the whole time. You do have a young team. We'll talk a little bit more about that and the fact there's only 1 senior. But you also you came out of the gates with an interesting schedule. I think for some people, they would look at this and go, hey, those are some good teams, at least maybe in the past. I think you guys kind of have a mix, hit or miss this year. You got to win over Moravian to start. You beat Hood, Cortland State, Franklin and Marshall, obviously in conference play, and Haverford, Gettysburg as well. Gettysburg, obviously a team that's in transition, but always at the top of the conference. Then you had to play Bryn Mawr in that non-conference game. DeSales was the last one out of the gate, and you got that out-of-conference game in there. How do you think those 8 games went? It's hard for me to look at this considering how much of that landscape is constantly changing and get a grip. How do you think you guys did?
Well, the Moravian game was a nice win for us. Moravian DeSales, 2 local teams, 15 minutes from our campus. It's almost like playing a conference game that teams know each other so well. But Moravian, I thought was a really nice win for us. And then after we had beat them, they went something like 9 or 10 straight wins.
Yeah.
Wins over Montclair and some other quality teams. So that win really got better and better as the season goes on. Remind me to send a thank you email to Mary Beth Spur.
Yes.
And then the Gettysburg team is doing very well right now.
Yeah.
I think they're about 7-2. So we've got a few wins. Cortland State, who I think everybody expected, including us, to be really a top-notch team.
Yeah.
I think lost one of their top post players prior to the start of the season. But they're still a good team.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, sometimes the wins later in the season look better than they are early in the season.
That is certainly the case. Cortland at 7-3.
Our team was such a young team, just being able to play well. What surprised me wasn't that we beat some of those teams. Is we handled a lot of those teams, fairly easily. To tell you the truth, is we just played very well.
Well, yeah, you beat Cortland 74-49. They're now 7-3.
Yeah.
You beat Gettysburg 81-72. That would be a relatively closer game for sure.
Yeah.
But of course, you also haven't hit the meat of this conference either. Right. You played F&M, who tends to be near the bottom. You beat Haverford and Gettysburg. Obviously, Gettysburg's near the top of the conference, and rightly so. But you haven't really gotten into the conference play despite playing 3 games already.
No, we haven't. We get a few games done before Christmas because of the size of our conference.
Right.
You can't wait until January to play all your games. And we're playing 3 games a week through most of January as is. But we're sort of used to that. That's a normal season for us. But coming back, we got Dickinson on Thursday.
Yep.
They're a team that seems to always give us trouble. And then we've got Hopkins and McDaniel, who were picked preseason 1-2 in the league. So it gets tough really very quickly. And when you're playing 18 league games, it's a long grind. It really is, because you don't have a breather. Any one of those games can cost you the regular season championship.
Well, Haverford is 5-4, but they're 0-2 in conference play.
Right.
We talked about it. Franklin and Marshall, they're 2-9, 1-4 in conference play. You do have Dickinson coming up, 4-5, 1-3 in conference play, and you also have. By the way, I wanted to mention Gettysburg, 6-2, but weirdly 1-2 in conference play. But you do have Hopkins coming up, and this is the oddity of this conference this year. Hopkins is 3-6. They're 1-2 in the conference. They were picked to finish second. You know, Nancy Funk obviously always has a good set of talent around her. But talk about just not the season. Does that make it hard going into a game like that to prepare? Because you expect X. You know what Nancy has. You know what the talent is. You all predicted her to be second in the conference. They're clearly not when they look at the record. Does that almost do you almost start second guessing what you're seeing?
Sometimes a little bit. The one thing that's great for our team is that we did that last year. We opened up the season 3-5.
True.
And we're terrible. I mean, we were 3-5, and we were the best 3-5 team I ever saw. I mean, we were worse than that. We should have been like 1-7.
Nice.
And we go and we wind up finish 21-7 on the season. You know, we win 18 of our last 20. So we look at a Johns Hopkins right now. We look at a McDaniel right now, and we see the potential for them to do the same thing. We came back last year, beat an undefeated McDaniel team, came back and beat an undefeated Gettysburg team to get the ball rolling. And those teams are planning to do the same thing against us. And especially since we don't have much experience, it's like a first time around the block for a lot of the kids on my team. I've got one starter back from last year's team.
Yeah, exactly. And which is, again, amazing where you guys are ranked. Again, and McDaniel's 8-2, 4-0 in the conference. The other curveball, Ursinus is 5-5, but they're 4-0 in the conference.
League games.
Yeah, exactly.
They only win league games, but we're league games, so I don't get to play them out of league.
I was going to say, you're going to see him twice, but unfortunately you're not going to see him for a while. Does that make it, I mean, obviously you don't want to concentrate on them necessarily, but come on, you know this conference, you know this region well enough, you've served on committees. Yep. You got to be looking at this going, I don't know what to make of it.
I really don't. And especially, like I said, with our conference, you're playing 18 league games over a 3-month span.
Yeah.
It's a lot like the NBA. Sometimes it's not who you play, it's when you play them.
True.
You play a team early in January and you get them at the right time, you feel good. You have to play them in the middle of February or the beginning of February when they've got it all together. Hey, then it's a totally different story. So we'll see what'll happen. I really don't know. At this point for our team, we've sort of looked at it as we just got to win the next game. And like I said, I'm starting 3 sophomores, a junior, and a senior. The sophomore is my 6th player coming off the bench. It's their first time through it. They've been there. They won a championship last year, cheering on their teammates and practicing hard every day. So every day for them is a new experience. And in some ways, I really think the fact that they don't know what they're doing and what's going on has been sort of a blessing for them. Because they just go out and play the next game. They're more concerned about making a music video and where do we eat later than anything else at this point.
Do you know what music videos are, Coach? Do you understand what?
I do. All I know is they told me that in their free time yesterday they were making a music video. So I will.
I want to see this.
D3 Hoops, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, Ron, I want to see what this video ends up looking like.
I want to see that too. It's probably a song you and I have never heard of.
No, absolutely. I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the team, though. You talk about him. You talk about the one senior. We had a graphic pop up just a moment ago saying you had one senior. That senior is Christina Santoni.
Yep.
10.9 points a game, 8.9 rebounds a game. Seems pretty solid. Seems like that would be the leader. She's not. There are 3 sophomores outscoring her. Nearly 15 points a game for Christina Manning. Rachel Plotke, 14.5 points a game. Brandy is it Valali?
It's Valali.
Valali. You just add the extra LL in there.
Yeah.
14 points a game from her. Valali is hauling down 8 rebounds a game. And is that true? Valali's handing out an 11.5 assists a game?
Yeah, she's had 3 triple-doubles this year.
Where's Mike Falk? I got to talk to him about assists.
Most of those have been on the road. We opened up against Moravian on the road. She had 15.
That's amazing.
Which is amazing because it was her first college start. She didn't play last year as a freshman. She broke her foot before the season started, really missed the year. But she is just finding people, and you mentioned kids like Christina Santone, kids like Rachel Plotke, Christina Manning. When people make the shot after you pass it to them, you get more assists.
Yeah, well, I mean that is a stellar number. We talk about double-doubles averaging, and you've got a senior who's doing that in points and rebounds. That's what we're talking about, points and rebounds. It's not points and assists necessarily. How big is it that you can have a player who not only is going to hand out, as you point out, 15 assists a game, she's going to put in 12 to 15 points a game as well?
I'll tell you, it takes so much pressure off her teammates, and that's what's helped her to be able to get so many assists. You know, we've always been a running team, a fast break team, and Brandy is so comfortable in that game, and she makes teams fear her getting to the rim on the fast break. So when, you know, and I really think the way they're calling the game this year has had a big factor in that.
Sure.
You can't put your hands on somebody.
Yep.
You can't arm bar them. You can't push them on the way to the rim. So if you've got somebody who can get by their player, the only way to stop them is to have somebody go and help on that play. And when that happens, Brandy has court vision like a great quarterback does and finds that open player, and that's where the assists come from.
Well,
so the scoring and the assists sort of are playing off of each other for her.
While you were talking, I quickly looked up the NCAA stats online, and through the weekend, she's number 1 in the country at 11.4 assists a game. The team is number 2 in the country at 21.6 a game. Not too shabby, as they say. Of course, now that I've got this up here, field goal percentage, you're 7th best in the country. Scoring margin, you're 7th best in the country. Scoring offense, you're 12th best in the country. Your 2nd best personal fouls per game. I don't know what that really means, Coach, in the grand scheme of things.
That means we foul less than anybody else.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying we got to talk about the officials. Assist to turnover ratio is 6th best in the country, 4th best in 3-point field goals. In defensive rebounds a game, 6th best in the fewest fouls a game, as we previously mentioned, 15th in rebounds per game. You guys are statistically doing some amazing things.
I know. That's one of the things, like, our sports information director, Mike Falk, and I have talked about it. You know, we've had Sweet 16 teams. We've had, first-team All-Americans like Alex Chile. And we've had teams that have won 26, 25, 24 games in a season. But we've never had a team statistically put up the kind of numbers this team is. And I don't have an answer for it. It's just sometimes it just sort of clicks. And though the one thing I would say about this very young team is they practiced together every day last year against 6 seniors who won the Centennial Conference Championship. So they played against the best team in the league every single day. So their experience doing that, even though they don't have game night experience, and it's just been remarkable. The one thing for this team is we're trying not to get too far ahead of ourselves. With such a young team, I really went into the season telling them, hey, we're going to have peaks and valleys. Now we have a peak, a valley, and a valley.
Nice.
But maybe we just started the season on a peak, and there's some valleys down the road for us. We're going to find that out as we move along.
Well, I was going to say we'll circle back to the valley you put yourself in at 26 days. But let me talk about the other thing about statistics. The last time we were talking statistically about this team is one that you and I joke about nowadays, and that's when you were running the system, and you did it just because you wanted the team to enjoy themselves. You just didn't have the talent to compete. But we're talking, what, about a dozen years ago at this point?
Yeah, I mean, you're going back to the 04-05 team, so it's been a while, though people remember those days very fondly.
Yeah.
This team, truthfully, is better offensively than those teams were.
Sure.
We're averaging 80 points a game, basically, in half-court zone. So offensively, we're better. I charted our first half of our DeSales game the other day. I think we got 15 possessions where we shot the ball in the first 7 seconds we had the ball. The difference is we're not creating as much pace with other teams by pressing because I just don't have the depth this year. We're going maybe 7-8 deep. So we're playing a lot of half-court zone, a lot of containment type of defense. But once we get the ball, we are getting a shot pretty quickly.
Ron, it's like you read my mind. I was just about to say, you only going 7-8 deep in the eight games that you've played. You've gone 9 deep in 7 games. You do have a few other games where you've gone to your full roster, a total of 4 games in that case. But listen, I talked to a lot of teams, and we're talking about 10 guys deep in at least 2/3, 3/4 of the games. You're not doing that. And you've got a young team. Is there a concern? And granted, 26 days here will help. Again, I'll circle back. But is there a concern that as you get into the Centennial grind here, you're going to need a little extra more in that bench?
Yeah, I mean, that is a concern. There's no question about it. One of the things is we have a player who we projected to be a starter, one of our juniors, Caroline Barberi, who's coming back from injury in about a week and a half. So that'll give us a little bit more depth. We have a few very talented freshmen, but they're freshmen. They're not ready yet, but they're slowly developing where I think we're going to be able to use them more and more. And then what you have to do is just be smart in the way you practice. We just can't kill the kids every day in practice and expect to play 3 times a week. We've got to practice more like an NBA team does. Go an hour and 15 minutes, get off the floor, and save our legs for game night. And but on the flip side of that, the fact that we've got the same 7 kids on the floor most games, they know each other so well, they play together so well, and our continuity is much better than subbing in 10, 11 kids. So there's a plus and a minus on each side of that ledger.
Let me get back to this 26 days. How do you get the team refocused? I mean, let's be honest. It has been a month since you've seen the official blow a whistle in a game. It's been a month since the clock has truly counted down, except for an end of a practice. It is hard to get teams up and running after a week. It's hard to get them up and running after 2 weeks. We've seen them struggle after 3. I cannot imagine going 26 days. What's been the secret for you guys? At least what do you hope is the secret that will get this team ready for their game? Essentially, as again, you guys play Thursday when this has been announced or has been released. What's the secret to get rolling here?
My concern is twofold. We basically had 18 days or so where we weren't even practicing or working out together.
Right.
Kids came back in great shape. There's a difference between working out shape and game shape.
Absolutely.
You have to play yourself 2-3 times a week in a game shape. Even practice doesn't get you ready for that.
Agreed.
So we sort of have to take it in and go to our depth more, maybe pull in the reins a little bit more, slow down until we can get 3 or 4 games under our belt. The other thing is something you alluded to, which is that competitiveness. There's a difference between going for a rebound against your teammate, going for a rebound against somebody else. Fighting through a screen against a teammate, you play a little softer against people So hopefully that doesn't cost us in those first 3 or 4 games. I think if we can sort of get through that stage, then we'll be back on par where everybody else is. But that's sort of what we have to do. We found it sort of makes us, having that time off also makes us a little fresher mentally. Though truthfully, January historically has not been a good month for us, so we're going to keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's a fair point too. Of course, that's getting into the conference action. Couple quick questions I have for you that I want to get in before we run out of time. First and foremost, you do play Bryn Mawr in non-conference game. We halfingly joked about that. Is there a solution? You've been sitting on committees. You and I have talked before about how this is hurting the conference when you look at SOSs, when you look at criteria to make the NCAA tournament. From your point of view, what's the answer here with this Bryn Mawr scenario?
The answer so far is something that has happened, which is, their program has improved. I think they've got like 3 or 4 wins now this year. They beat an Immaculata team the other day.
Sure.
They're a part of our league. They're a part of our conference. I think it's not an easy place to win. Let's face it. It's a great academic school. The SAT standards are enormous.
Yes.
It's an all-female school, so it's not an easy recruit. So our hope is that they just keep doing a good job, keep supporting the program, and that they can raise up to the level that it helps the league more and more. And that's just the way it's sort of it's going to be for us. And we sort of have to be Bryn Mawr fans to a certain degree, and they have made really good strides, I will tell you, over the last 2 or 3 years.
And I agree with that, but is there a certain point where this is really hurting the conference in the sense that it's an automatic ding on the SOS that you can't offset with a second game to kind of even everything off? You automatically have a game in there that you have no choice about, and it also restricts you from scheduling an opponent that can maybe do better by you for at-large criteria or even hosting criteria.
Yeah, I think all those things are true. That's where, from our standpoint, we'll play a Cortland, we'll play a Moravian,
right.
We'll play the Sales. We'll do the best that we can for that, to offset that. But, who knows? It could be 5-10 years down the line, and their numbers are fine, and somebody else in the league is
absolutely
hurting the league.
Yeah.
So you never really know. It's
Sure.
It's a case-by-case basis, and everybody is doing their best. And again, I think you also have to keep in mind the Division III philosophy, which is we're not here to fill arenas. We're not here to make X amount of TV dollars. Our job is, and our number one goal from our team at Muhlenberg every year is to win the Centennial Conference. So if we don't win the Centennial Conference, if we don't win the league championship, if we don't get that automatic bid, I'm not going to cry too much about not getting an at-large bid because somebody didn't like our strength of schedule. It was in our hands to do that, and we didn't do that.
Sure.
So really, try to make as few excuses for our own success or failure as possible.
What's the message to the team moving forward? Obviously, the message is to get up and playing after 26 days. But my point is, with the conference grind here, January and February being so important, high expectations both nationally and on you guys. What's the message? What's on the grease board to this team to get them psychologically ready for the grind here?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing is that our number one goal is to win the league and win the championship. We didn't go into the season, believe me, we did not go into the season saying we need to make the top 10 national rankings.
Sure.
That was not something on the goal list. So that's still our goal. Don't forget, we've won 6 out of the past 10 Centennial Conference championships.
Yep.
So these people, the girls on this team, there's a certain amount of tradition and there's a certain amount of success that's come before them, and they don't want to be the team that lets that down. So that's number one, is winning the conference. And then we've talked about not playing to the polls. I really thought us even breaking into the top 25 initially was very premature. Happy that we got it. It helps recruiting.
Sure.
Parents like to go to the office, brag about their kids, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
But there is a danger on a very young team, especially of playing to the poll. Oh, we can't lose this game because we'll drop in the poll, or we'll lose this game, we won't be ranked. And then you start playing not to lose instead of trying to win.
Yeah.
So we really tried to focus on that type of thing as well, and just go out there and play the game. I said in practice for us yesterday, listen, I don't know if we're one of the top 10 best teams in the country, but we got to go out and practice today like we want to be one of the top 10 teams in the country. And that's sort of the mindset that we have. Like I said, this team just wants to go play and win. It's nice when you have a lot of kids who sat the bench all last year. They're just happy to be playing.
That's true.
And the fact that they're winning, I think, is maybe a bigger surprise to them as it is to anybody else.
I think the other thing that's great about you, Coach, is I didn't know you were one who could guide individuals. As an alum of yours, Aaron McSherry.
Oh, yeah.
From 09. I found the great article on your website written by Sports Illustrated's Jack McCallum, who, by the way, if no one knows, is a Muhlenberg grad. This story about the leading shot blocker in school history, who now is not so much blocking light as she is receiving it from the cameras as a bit of a fashion photo, a model, is the word I was trying to get to. That's incredible.
She's it's funny, when Erin came to visit campus as a senior in high school, she told me on the tour, I'm going to be a professional celebrity stylist. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shop, I'm going to dress people, I'm going to do wardrobe for all these kind of stuff. Now her mom is walking behind her, rolling her eyes and shaking her head, basically telling me no, she's going to get a business degree so she can get a job.
Yeah.
And
she did both.
And now that's what she's doing. She's the personal stylist for people like Sofia Vergara, for the rapper 50 Cent. She does all kinds of movies, all kinds of music video shoots. Yeah. It's really amazing what she's done. But everybody wants to know now, after that story came out, how I still dress so poorly. Because they figure Erin must be giving me some kind of advice. I remember one time I came in when her senior year, and I was dressed for a game. I thought I looked great, And I go, Erin, what do you think? And she just shook her head and said, Coach, no chance. I can't even help you.
Wow.
I was like, that's okay, Erin. You just go keep blocking shots. I'll look bad.
164 block shots. You look good in the sweatshirt.
But it does show the kind of things that happen for kids at the Division III level and the kind of things that they could do.
Absolutely. She even did an internship her junior year where you allowed her to leave leave twice a week to be in Manhattan for that internship. That's incredible.
She had one of those internships with the fashion designer Susanna Monica.
Oh, that's too bad.
That's pretty good. Like 3,000 people applied. She got it.
That's too bad.
And she got the internship. She was basically the girl in The Devil Wears Prada. I mean, that was her internship.
That's amazing.
And it was awesome. It was awesome. She went from being an okay player that year to being all conference. I was looking for another internship for her senior year. Sometimes you don't know how things are going to work out.
You're right. And by the way, we'll see if she chimes in, if she's watched this interview and has any ideas about your attire here. I certainly hope she doesn't say anything about the polo. I know I could use some fashion advice. My wife tells me all the time too.
Yeah, she's got a great eye. She's got a great look.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. Kids on our team love following her on Twitter and Instagram and all that because she's got people like Jay-Z tweeting with her.
That's unbelievable.
I think that's the phraseology. I barely have a cell phone, so I don't know what most.
Don't worry. I don't think you've gone too far off into the deep end just yet. It's truly YD3 though, to say the least.
It is. It really is.
Hey, appreciate you taking the time. Always love chatting with you, whether it's in person, on Skype, or on the telephone. You're always a blast to chat with, and hopefully we'll run into each other sometime down the road. As always, we give the coach and guest the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
No, good luck to everybody out there. Hopefully you'll check in with us later in the season and you'll tell us we're still doing good instead of I told you shouldn't have taken that 26-day layoff.
Yeah. Well, next time we check in, we need you in a suit that's been approved by Aaron.
How about that? I'll have to buy one.
No, true.
I'm going to wear it. I'm going to have to buy one.
That's a good point. Hey, take care, Coach. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Ron Roan joining us from Muhlenberg. Again, the team is off to an 8-0 start, though they've been on a 26-day break. That 26-day break, by the way, longer than their preseason in the Centennial. Just something else to consider. They're 3-0 in conference play. They are off and underway on Thursday against Dickinson, a home game. They then take on Hopkins on Saturday, and then they take on McDaniel the following week. Though that's certainly a big test coming up for the Muhlenberg Mules. Going to take another break. When we come back, we'll talk more women's basketball. We'll go from Pennsylvania to California. Cal-Lu is on our topic sheet. We'll talk to the Cal Lutheran women's basketball team coming up. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and NABC studios. More Hoopsville right after this.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
I'm a current Division III student athlete, and I remember how intimidating the first year of college can be.
So if you're a first-year student athlete and nervous about coming out as LGBTQ, I pledge to stand by your side as your ally.
If you can play Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I believe student athletes can help break down the barriers of exclusion.
I pledge to support and encourage my teammates
to support my campus's LGBTQ student group
by volunteering and participating in events.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I believe that everyone should be educated on LGBTQ issues.
I pledge to work with my athletic department and my campus to foster dialogue and create a community of support, respect, and pride.
If you can play in Division III.
We are Division III student athletes, and you can be too. If you can play in Division III.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. Granted, not live like we normally do, but I appreciate you still being a fan of the program. We'll be back on the air live on Sunday. Of course, next Thursday's show will also be pre-recorded, as we will be busy at the NCAA convention and catching some basketball games while we're down there. If you're down in the San Antonio area, I don't know my exact schedule, but if you happen to see me, make yourself known. We love meeting fans and others from around Division III and looking forward to being in San Antonio next week. Don't forget, you can always follow us on Twitter. Follow us at D3Hoopsville, or use the hashtag Hoopsville. You can also join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Of course, you can always email us, hoopsville@D3Hoops.com. I want to thank Ron Roan from Muhlenberg previously. Going to stay with the women's basketball theme, mainly as an homage to the WBCA coming on board here, because we are in the now WBCA NABC studios, and we appreciate their support of Hoopsville. We're glad to have them on as a partner, and we're going to stick with some women's basketball here, and we're going to go from Pennsylvania all the way out west to maybe some similar weather. Oh, who are we kidding? It's always nicer in Southern Cal, even if it's pouring rain. We're going to talk Cal Lutheran basketball, and joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is their head basketball coach to the women's program, Lindsay Goldblat. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me. First and foremost, heck of a season here. 9-3 to start the season, 3-0 in conference play. Yes, we'll talk about the fact that 2 of those games are in non-conference action, so you look even better in the Division III world because you're really 9-1 overall.
Yeah, we really early on, we have a good core coming back, and so I wanted to really challenge us and put some games on our schedule that would expose some of our weaknesses. And we've really responded a lot better than I anticipated. And so I've been really thrilled with the progress that we've made throughout the course of the season, and really happy with where we stand right now.
Well, this even started on game number 1 on the opening day of the season on Friday the 13th. For George Fox, that nearly became that Friday the 13th for them. You guys only lost 71-69. Let's be honest. That can go down essentially as a win in a lot of teams' programs to take the vulnerable, though apparently looked vulnerable, but the monster that is George Fox, taking them right down to the wire. That's a heck of a way to start the season.
Yeah, we responded very well with that. We went there 2 years ago. That was my first year here at Cal Lutheran. We had, with us now, we have 9 of those girls who experienced what was our very first game against a Division III school powerhouse such as George Fox, and it was quite the eye-opener for us. So now with 8 who are now 8 of those girls are juniors and 1 is a senior, we went as a very different team, and we remembered that experience. And I think having done that so early and them having the experience as freshmen and as 1 sophomore really helped prepare us for that. And again, we went in there and we wanted to keep it competitive, and much to our pleasant surprise, it was a great game.
Yeah, you definitely had everybody's attention that night, especially the late nighters like myself, checking out games around the country. And then what I find more impressive, though, Coach, is a game like that, you lose. Granted, you weren't supposed to win. Let's be honest. Nobody had you winning that game,
right.
But you lose in such a close manner that can be, that can be a mental hit for any team. So recovering and playing the next day, and especially trying to win a game, no matter who the opponent is, good, bad, or ugly, is not necessarily an easy task. You guys came back and beat Lewis and Clark the next day by 14.
Yeah, we put a lot of effort into that George Fox game, and I think physically, emotionally, mentally, we were exhausted afterwards. It took everything that we had to make that the game that it was, and they're a very well-coached team, and to play in the atmosphere at George Fox, it's a challenge. So it was tough for us. It was almost like the Lewis and Clark game was a little bit harder for us to come back and to be just as tough and just as physical and just as mentally focused and sharp, and it was a little bit of a struggle early on. We went had a slow start there, but seemed to pick it up and get some stops and score some baskets when we needed to.
Of course, then you played 2 non-Division III teams, and quickly, I just kind of want to get an idea of who these teams are from anybody out there who may not understand, especially considering you're out there on the island that is California. You played the Masters College. I assume that's not in Augusta, Georgia. And then you played Westmont College. Who are these teams for anybody out there who's not familiar, and why those opponents for you guys this season?
Right. So they're NAIA Division I schools and very talented. Westmont won their national championship about 3 years ago. Masters is top of their conference. They play in Westmont's conference. And so those were really good challenges for us to play a lot of size, to play teams that were more physical, a little bit quicker than us, and to be able to battle with them. And we had a tough time. And to play those games, I think, really helped expose our weaknesses and help us get to a place where we know what we need to work on, and we need to get to work if we want to be a top team.
Obviously, games that won't count in Division III's world in the grand scheme of things, unless for some absolutely crazy reason we are so deep into the criteria between you and some other teams that common opponents are going to become a factor. And let's be honest, I don't see that becoming any issue. And they really need a tiebreaker, and they had 2 losses. But in reality, this isn't going to be much of a conversation starter. But I think what the most impressive part was then you came off of that after having some time off. Over a week to be exact. You took on a couple of more Northwest Conference teams, this time once again back up in the Northwest. You took on Whitman and Whitworth. And talk about, if you're not talking about George Fox in the Northwest Conference, you're talking about Whitman and Whitworth. You're talking about the 2 other stalwarts of that conference who are darn good. Whitworth almost made the tournament last year. Whitman has certainly been a team to watch out for. You beat both of them. And for one of them, and I believe it's Whitman, it's still their only loss on the season. You made one heck of a statement, especially on the Division III side, to start this year.
It was, like I said, we really wanted to challenge ourselves. Both of those are great teams, very well coached.
Yeah.
To have to travel up, that way was really going to test us. And I felt for us that we've come a long way in the last 2 years, and we have grown, and we've have a new maturity about us. And I think that 100% showed when we took that trip. And we knew that it was going to be a challenge for us. And the girls know we're going to play top teams in the Northwest. And it's very important for us to keep it competitive. And then let's just see what happens. And they came out just firing away. And, and worked. You know, we decided that we're going to go up there not just to play games, but we're going to go up there and do our best to compete and win those games. And it somehow worked out for us. I am convinced we had about a 5-hour layover going into Washington, and we missed our practice.
Oh.
So I am convinced that the girls were thrilled about that.
Yeah.
And came out, they're like, okay, if we can win, maybe Coach will cancel all the practices day before games.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. It was a nice idea.
Yeah.
Nice idea.
It's going to work out for them, but it was a good effort.
I'm surprised you either didn't make the terminal a practice location, or yet even crueler, call the TSA and go, hey, can we borrow a little tarmac?
You know, we thought about it. But it was raining a little bit. That's we're not quite used to. So.
Listen, those buildings are on top of things. You can get underneath the terminals. There's room. I don't know what's under the terminals necessarily, but come on, there's a lot of tarmac. I'm really surprised you just didn't go right in the middle of the terminal and say, people, clear out. We just got to run through some plays here, please.
Yeah, we had the chairs as defenders, you know.
Exactly. Would have been the trick would have been the offensive player who's not moving but is on the moving sidewalk. That could have been a little hard to defend. But listen, you made essentially 2 trips to the Great Northwest. You went to Newburgh, Oregon, and Portland, Oregon the first weekend. You come out of there 1-1 with a near victory over one of the best teams in the country. The next time you go up to Walla Walla, Washington, and onward up to Spokane, and you come out with 2 wins there. Listen, I know how this system works. That may be one heck of a benefit for you guys should you be in the conversation of the NCAA tournament. I'm not saying you're necessarily hosting because of travel arrangements, but you might get a better matchup because of all that. And then we're talking the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, we just, we didn't have any of that in mind.
Sure.
When I made the schedule, it was...
You don't. I do.
Challenger. Yeah. We just want to challenge ourselves.
Sure.
We're very fortunate to be able to have come out with quite a few wins and battling George Fox the way that we did. And so we're just looking to really, we do that to prepare ourselves for our conference because that's really what matters for us. Every one of those games, those Northwest games included with the NAIA teams that we played, have really prepared us, and we're in a really great place right now. It's up to us to keep our level, to keep ourselves playing at a high level. But yeah, we're excited for the future. Like I said, there was 9 of us who started this journey together 2 years ago, and we just, from day one, wanted to build the program back to what it was when it was winning conference tournaments and making it to regionals and things like that. So we've got some lofty goals for ourselves, and we just take it one game at a time and treat everybody, like they're a top team in the nation, and that's how we have to approach every game.
Since then, you've come home finally. Granted, you played Westmont College at home, but you played the rest of the season at home. Occidental Pacific, UC Santa Cruz, another Northwest team in Pacific Lutheran, Pomona Pitzer, Caltech. You've won all of them. Some of the games haven't even been close. I think 4 of the 6 haven't been close. You're certainly on a roll, and you got Laverne coming up this weekend, and you'll go back on the road for that. You got to love how the teams responded and dealt with the holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the holiday was the best thing for us. We took we're pretty fortunate to have 4 or 5 days off, which is great. And coming back from the Northwest, we were really excited about what we did and how it went. That we came home and we started to have a couple of poor shooting nights and become a little bit less disciplined and things like that. So we were pretty sure that we wanted to go back to the Northwest after our next 2 games and play all of our home games somewhere up there. But the break was perfect for us. The girls needed some time just to relax and to rest and to get mentally prepared for the next part of our season, and they responded great. And we just hope to continue to improve and work on those weaknesses that we have.
Obviously started the conference schedule with a 3-0 start. You're tied with Claremont Mudscripts. Both programs are getting votes in the women's top 25. Behind you's Redlands, who's only played a single game, and then Chapman at 2-1, and Whittier at 1-1. No one has an above 500 record except you, Claremont Scripps, and Chapman. This is going to be a bit of a dogfight for a conference, but I'm gathering, and obviously it's early, it looks like this is a Cal-Lou CMS fight.
Anything can happen. We don't take anything for granted. our conference is it's crazy. We have common opponents that we've lost to that some of our teams that are under 500 have beaten.
Yeah.
So we definitely aren't taking anything for granted. We hope to put ourselves in a position where we are one of those top 2 teams. Claremont has traditionally been very successful and has done really well, especially these past few seasons. And so we're looking forward to the challenge, whatever that brings for us.
You look back, obviously you took over for Roy Dow. This is a program that had won 20 games or 20 plus games under him. It's a program that's been double figures in wins since 2010. This is a program that everyone's kind of synonymous with being the top of the SCIAC. How much pressure does that put on you as a new coach per se with the program? Come in there, keep that winning streak alive, not only the immediate year after with the talent that remains, but to get the recruits in and keep that program kind of chugging along in the same direction.
I'm really fortunate. I'm at a great university. Cal Lutheran's fantastic. We have, like most other Division III schools, strong academics. We have a beautiful campus, beautiful facilities. So for us, it's, we feel like if we can bring some recruits on campus, that the campus sells itself. So we're very fortunate in that area. As far as the pressure goes, for myself personally, I just want to do the best job that I can do, and whatever that brings, that brings. So, hopefully it's going to bring us in the future some conference championships. We're really working hard to do that. We have a great group of girls this year who are very focused and have some lofty goals for themselves. So, you can't put pressure on yourself to do things that other people have done. You just got to do the best that you can do, and that's what we tell to our players. Don't worry about what this team did last year. Don't worry about what they did 5 years ago. Worry about what we can do right now.
In the next week plus, you'll play 3 games, 2 of them on the road, 1 of them at home in conference play. You'll play Laverne, who I got a chance to see at the D3Hoops.com Classic in Las Vegas. May not have a great record, but they're certainly a team that you can't overlook. They're gonna give you problems. You then have Redlands on the road. Then you'll follow up a week and a half from now at home against Whittier, and Whittier is your only home game in a span of 5. That'll obviously come back and help you later when you guys finish off the regular season with 4 of 7 at home. How important is this little run here, this next 3, this next 5, especially the road games, to make sure you stay in the conversation and don't take too many hits or any hits at all in general before you run into the Chapman and Claremont Mud Scripps at the end of January? Right.
Yeah. No, they're very important for us. These are all great teams. That have a chance to win any game. It's fun to check the scores after our game and see who did what in the conference, because there's really no, clear cut, so-and-so's going to win this game. So we just want to continue to play at a high level and make sure that we do that consistently, whether it's on the road or whether it's at home. And, going to a place like Redlands, one of our furthest trips that we take, and I know you're probably going to laugh at me, it's only, it's about 2.5 hours away.
Yeah, I was going to say, come on. And 2.5 hours, half of that's just the traffic.
Yes.
It's not the distance. It's not the distance, it's the traffic.
Absolutely. So we just want to make sure that we're mentally prepared for those, for those trips and playing in places that that we know people are going to bring their best game for us. We have a target on our back, and we're okay with that, but we want to continue to do that.
Let's talk about your team. You only have 1 senior on this squad, but I also noticed you don't tend to go very deep on the bench during a game. Let's talk about the dynamics, though. That 1 senior is Chelsea Jacoby. She's second on the team with 12.3 points a game and 5.7 rebounds a game. You're led by Jessica Salatolo. I hope I said that right.
Yes, you got it.
Whew, junior.
I know, she's a tough one.
Yeah, it's that extra O in there that kind of throws you for a loop. Maybe the extra T as well. Salatolo, 12.5 points a game, nearly 4 rebounds a game. She's leading the way. You have another sophomore, Tatiana Dunlop, 11 points a game, 4 rebounds a game. We should point out, by the way, Salatolo, 3 assists a game. Jacoby, 3.5 assists a game. Dunlap, 2 assists a game. You also have Haley Hodgson at 8 points a game. Triana Owen at 7.5, along with Taylor Messick at 7.5. Those are all juniors on this squad, and some of them haven't even. Let's see. Hodgson's played in 12 games. I mentioned Dunlap. I apologize. She's only played in a single game. Hodgson's played in 12. Owen's played in 9. Messick's played in 12. Yeah, sorry about the Dunlop there. I missed the one next to her name. But those other two, Salatolo and Jacoby, obviously the keys to this squad in the sense that plenty of points, plenty of rebounds, plenty of dishes.
Yeah, we're a very selfless team, and it took us a little bit to be able to realize that that's how, we have to do things like that to be able to win games. And, some of our, we could just call them better offensive players, don't care if they're scoring all the points. And it shows because some of them are leading us in assists. And they do create, a lot of pressure from the defense. And so for them to be able to recognize that someone else is more open and share the ball is, I think, a big part of our success that we've had. But Chelsea's been phenomenal. She's Division I bounce back for us. And like I said, she started here a couple of years ago when I got here, and local product. So I've known her in high school and all that stuff. So it's been I've been very, very happy to have a chance to coach her. She is one of our hardest workers, and to have one of your leaders to be your hardest worker, puts us in a really good position. So her and Jessica Salatolo have taken up most of the scoring for us, but they also guard some of the better offensive players on teams. It's not just about them putting the ball in the basket. It's about what more can they do for our team and how can they help us win. And they're not, like I said, they're the biggest supporter of someone else, getting an and one or hitting a three than themselves making a basket.
What's really interesting is you have 6 players who've played in 12 games. That's it. We can go out to 7 players who played in 10, 8 teams that have played in 9. You don't go deep on this bench necessarily. You don't. Depth isn't exactly a word I'd use for this squad.
We actually have all of our returners. We have about 9 of them, the juniors and the senior, who all could definitely make an impact for us. And with that, I think there's about 3 girls who don't start that could easily start for us. So we are a little bit deeper, I think, than what you're seeing on paper. And that's, when someone's having a tough night, someone seems to come in off the bench and step up when we need them. And that's the biggest part for us. But we are led by our juniors, we're led by our senior, and we're getting good production from a couple of our sophomores.
Talking to Lindsay Goldblat here, the head coach for Cal Lutheran, CLU. I'll figure that out someday. Team is obviously off to a terrific start midway through the season at 9-3, 3-0 in conference play with conference play left to go. So what's the message to the team? What is the goal? What is the hoorah to get this squad to remain focused? Besides possibly not practicing the day before games, I realize that's what they'd like, but in the grand scheme of things, what's the message to the squad as you guys now really get into the toughest part of the schedule, the conference stuff where everybody knows everybody?
Yeah, the message is stay focused. We like to play to what we call our CLU standard, and that's what we go and do every night. And it doesn't matter. Obviously, every game is just as important as the next because anything can happen, and we know that, and we're not taking anything for granted. And, like I said, we've got some lofty goals. We'd love to win conference. We'd love to make it to the NCAA tournament, things like that. But that comes with a lot of hard work, and I think at this point we know that. So we're continuing to work hard. We're going to continue to try and play to a high standard and hope things work out for us in the end.
Well, very good. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and talk about CLU, especially the great start to the season. The Eagles obviously playing well, and obviously some big wins in there as well, as we talked about. As always, though, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who may be tuning in?
Yes, I'd like to let everybody know it has rained in California for the past 2 days.
That's probably worth it.
About all our sunshine, but I want everybody to feel very bad for us.
Yeah, I don't know about the very bad or the bad part, but we feel for you. We'll go that far, okay?
But no, I want to thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed being a part of the show. I appreciate the opportunity, and just let everyone know if you're in the area, if you can ever come out and check out a game, hopefully you'll enjoy it and you'll have a lot of fun watching us play. Just remember, it's going to take you twice as long to get there as you think it will. Just remember that part. It's L.A. region after all. Leave early. Leave early, stay late? No, never mind. Coach, thanks so much. Take care. Good luck the rest of the season. We'll look forward to hopefully we talk about the Regals at the end of February as well. That'd be great.
Take care. Lindsay Goldblat joins us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Appreciate her taking the time. Again, 9-3 start, 3-0 in conference play. Really shouldn't say start. We're halfway through the season, for them at least. Again, Laverne and Redlands coming up in the next 2 games on the road, then home against Whittier, then back on the road against Occidental and Chapman. Big set of 5 games coming up here just to keep momentum rolling as they enter that Chapman Claremont Mudd Scripps setup there. And obviously those games will repeat themselves as well in the SCIAC. When we come back, we'll switch gears. We'll shift into men's basketball action. We'll go from California back to New York. So we've gone Pennsylvania to California. Now we'll go back to New York. If you follow? Okay, so we'll go Western New York. Maybe it'll feel like Western Coast. Maybe not. You know what I'm saying. You're watching Hoopsville. Presented by D3Hoops.com. This is in from the WBCA NABC studios. More Hoopsville right after this.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things, not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying today's show. Obviously, we're not live. I have a previous obligation, public addressing a basketball game at my alma mater. It happens on time to time. Can't get the schedule absolutely perfect when talking with the scheduling gods, but we do hope you're enjoying the show, whether you've picked it up halfway through, whether you have come on for a specific interview, or whether you've caught the whole thing, whether it's the video version or the podcast. We appreciate you taking the time. Lots of big news to talk about in Division III, and this is our first night where we have segmented back to the regional coverage like we normally do on Thursdays and Sunday evenings. Of course, we're on the air at 7 o'clock normally on those shows. Thursdays, we normally talk Great Lakes, East, Mid-Atlantic, and a bit of West region. Sometimes we sprinkle in some South as well. Tonight, we've been talking about those 4 main regions, and we've been talking women's basketball. Now we're transitioning into some of our men's basketball coverage, and we're going to jump up to the East region. And I'll be blunt. I looked at the East region. I've had a few ideas of who I've wanted to talk to, but every week I wait another week to go talk to somebody. A couple more teams get added to the list, especially if you're looking at the SUNYAC. It is incredible. Now, obviously, this is pre-taped. A lot of these interviews, we're talking to guests on Wednesday to get it all turned around Thursday for you on Thursday night. So some games may take place before we talk to teams. And in the SUNYAC's case, that could completely change half of what we're about to talk about, and at least who's leading and who's in what position, so on and so forth. But at the same time, it may not. However, one of the teams leading the way right now in the SUNYAC is Buffalo State. The team is up there in the running. They're not leading the way. That's Cortland State's right now after thumping Oswego State earlier in the week. But Plattsburgh's up there. Buffalo State's up there as well. And Buffalo State has had some significant wins this season. So we figured, what a better time. It's been a while. We might as well talk to their head coach. So joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is their head coach, Fazri Ansari. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Thank you very much.
I think the last time we actually talked to you might have been back in 2011 when you guys were making that incredible run through the regular season, winning the SUNYAC title, and making an even better run into the NCAA tournament.
Yes. It was seemed like a long time ago, but
it does.
Cherished memories.
Yes. Well, you guys are back in it. Not that you're not always somewhat in the fray in the SUNYAC. You've been right in the middle of the road for the last couple of seasons since 2011. Obviously, you're on better terms, as it were, right now. 8-2 the start, 2-1 in conference play. As we speak to you, we should point out, is obviously this show's coming out on the 7th. You'll be playing a game tomorrow, as it were, for anybody who's listening. But Friday the 8th against Potsdam and Saturday the 9th against Plattsburgh, both games on the road. We'll talk about the significance of travel in a bit. But first and foremost, 8-2 start, Coach. I don't know if necessarily you guys were flying on anybody's radar, but you're certainly on everybody's radar now.
Yes, we try to get competitive games on the non-league because our conference, as you noted, is so tough, and you have to be ready to play every night. And it doesn't necessarily help you playing teams that's not on the same caliber, So we try to, sometimes you don't have the luxury of knowing who will go to what tournament, what teams, but it worked out for us. We played really good competition. All the teams I felt down in the Coaches versus Cancer and Lehman were capable of winning the tournament. It was very good competition, so we was fortunate to get that out. And then, you go right into 3 games in conference play on the road. So it's going to be a tough week for us. We was fortunate to get by last night or the other night at Brockport. But that was a good win for us. Again, very competitive team, and just, traveling, getting off the bus, and being ready to play out the jump against a team that's, just really eyeing you down is tough. But we was able to work it through.
Yeah, the beginning of the season certainly has been terrific. Obviously, a couple out-of-conference games in Point Park and Villa Maria. Really quick, kind of give us a sense of who those teams are. A lot of us in Division III, it's hard to follow the rest of the divisions and follow the rest of the NAIA on top of that. Can you give us an idea of Point Park and Villa Maria to understand that loss and win there?
Point Park, NAIA, as you mentioned, they're in Pittsburgh, and they are a team that's come ready to play because they don't have a home gym.
Oh, wow.
So they're on the road all the time. They get some veteran players, maybe guys who may have started another school, but they're usually seasoned. And I think that was their 5th game, and it was our first, besides the exhibition game, was the first game for us.
Sure.
Albeit at home. So they were a little bit more ready than we were. We didn't shoot it necessarily well that first night. A little excited, opening game and everything. But they are tough. Coach had been with them, I want to say at least 25 years, I believe. Wow. And I know he's probably looking towards the end, but, he has a system there and works pretty good for them. Villa Maria was a Division III school that took away their athletics some years ago, so they're just working their way back. I think they're about another year away or so before they actually get recognized with NCAA. But they have a lot of local players here, and so it was a competitive game. I thought it was tougher, that we made it tougher than it should have been, but that happens when the players kind of know each other and their style, and everybody seems to get up to play us, no matter what our season is or what our record is. Everybody just seemed to come to play us well.
Interesting. I would say not every year, but every other year at the worst, you'll play a non-Division III opponent. It's certainly not like you're in an isolated area where you can't find Division III opponents, but what's the draw to the Point Parks? And obviously Villa Maria is coming into the NCAA, but the idea, you played Point Park a few times, you played a couple others every once in a while. Is it just one of those, it's a nice filler? Is there something deeper?
We were like the local schools. We used to have what they call a Little Four tournament. It used to be with Dewaville, Hilbert, ourselves, and Madai. But when they all joined in the same conference, that kind of, scratched that. So sure. Villa Maria not being in that conference, we're hoping to get a couple of more local games and, maybe a possible tournament, and other schools wouldn't mind playing them because it wouldn't be a double game, if you will, as far as the conference play. Point Park, actually, we were looking at the possibility of doing a game with the University of Buffalo Division I, and it kept going back and forth. So we wind up losing the game that we initially had scheduled to play Madai opening. So Madai couldn't afford to wait, so they wind up taking the Geneseo game. So we had to fill in kind of late in the summer. So that's how we got the Point Park game.
Sure. So certainly sometimes it's just the circumstances that come to play. Of course, we should point out, we'll talk about it a little bit later, University of Buffalo, your alma mater. You look at the rest of the schedule, though. You got into it. Nazareth with a win. They got beat Hobart, who at the time looked like a pretty good squad. They've struggled as of late. Lost to Cortland State, who's leading the league right now. We'll talk about that more. Then got that big win over Oswego, and I think that's when people started to pick their ears up, as it were, a little bit. And then the win over New Jersey City. Epic win over New Jersey City. I think, triple overtime and set the NCAA record in the amount of foul shots in a 119-116 game. And then another big win over Lehman, who at the time was leading the CUNYAC. And then back in a conference play with a win over Brockport, who's certainly been good this year. You guys are kind of clicking off some good wins here. And like I said, we're flying under the radar now, but I think maybe you're kind of coming to the surface a little bit.
Well, we're trying to emphasize playing well together. I wasn't too pleased with the effort last night, although we got to win. We kind of went down with an assist and up in turnovers, which is not good. But, we're trying to work with sharing the ball. And, one good thing, we haven't had just one feature player. We have guys who are capable, who can stand out. And I think, we have some players who still can, definitely get better. I mean, everybody can get better as the season goes. So that's been helping us. It's a little easy to defend when you just one or two players you got to key on. I don't think it's a situation with us who's you can't just key one or two players with us. So that's been a good team effort. And we, I try to look at, teams to model. It's hard to tell when that's right now still kind of early in the Division I level, but certainly the professional teams. When you have Golden State and San Antonio, and I try to point out, the unselfishness and sharing the ball, and then having fun at it, enjoying and not having jealousy about anybody being a star, So it's tough, but that's what we're trying to preach this year, so that players can come ready to play. Being out of school and on the road the motivation factor gets a little tough, but we're trying.
Talking with Fazri Ansari, the head coach for Buffalo State. Team off to an 8-2 start, 2-1 the SUNYAC. A nice transition, coach. Talking about the squad helps me transition to talking about the squad. You have three seniors on this team, but they are not necessarily the guys that everyone defensively will be keying on. To be honest, none of the double-figure guys are seniors, which is great not only for this year, but for next year and beyond. Lovell Smith leads the way, having only played in 7 games, though, 16.7 points a game. Nico McLean, 15.3 points a game. Michael Henry, 15.3 points a game. Jordan Glover, nearly 12 points a game. The one senior we finally get to, and I just want to say his name, and I hopefully don't screw it up, but it's just a great name. Kevin Marmaleos. He's got 8.9 points a game. And of course, the leading rebounder, by the way, back to Henry at 9, but Smith's got 7.5, 6 for McLean as well. Again, the senior comes 5th on that list. You've got a lot of youth and a lot of targets who aren't necessarily going to be graduating this year.
Yes, and we're happy about that.
Yeah, sure. Anybody would.
Yeah, well, happy about that because I think they can get better. That's sure. Not just because they'll be coming back, but we, the upside is still there for them. Especially our inside players. We have another backup center, Leon Moyes. He'll be back next year also, and he's developing and getting better. And so we have the help with the seniors in terms of leadership, the camaraderie, and again they are instrumental whether they start or come in and off the bench. We still can't make it without their leadership this year. So
sure,
we're very, very happy about that. But we're taking it now is we're in the mix. Everything that's happened so far, it's still very early for us. We're not riding off of anything. Understanding every night in the SUNYAC is already there's been some surprises. I felt in terms of people. The wins, or some people lost at home, it wasn't expected. So it's kind of good to let the players who are new and just starting out to really get the message to them that you got to come to play at SUNYAC every night.
I think I said earlier that Cortland beat Oswego handily last night, or the other night, I should say. I think I misspoke. Don't know what game I was looking at for Oswego. I may have been reading the wrong thing, but nonetheless, Oswego was, I don't know if you guys did an official pick in the SUNYAC. I couldn't find it at least. But Oswego was certainly a favorite coming in. It is a dog fight already to start the season up there. Cortland's 3-0 as we speak. Plattsburgh's 2-0. Buffalo State, Oswego, and Oneonta, along with Potsdam, all have one loss. You have one more win than the rest. You're 2-1. The rest are 1-1. We always know the SUNYAC's going to be tough, but I think there's some, maybe your opinion too, there seems to be a few teams that have emerged that I don't think anybody thought would be in play right now.
Yeah, if you look at even last year, the team that was struggling, Fredonia just got a win over Geneseo last night.
That's who I was thinking.
And Potsdam beat New Paltz. So those are, wins. I think it's been a while since those teams have beat those opponents. So, again, I point to my players that every single night, especially when you're on the road, is just very, very tough, conference play. And I think that's true almost at any level. They have more familiarity with the style of play. The coaches are very good coaches in the conference. They prepare well, and, you try to take advantage. Then you have to deal with injuries. Lavelle Smith, he was just getting back at the Cortland game. He had pulled a hamstring at the I believe it was the Point Park game. So he had been out for a while. We still got a few injuries, but everybody has the same challenges. Same. So on any given night, you just hope everybody is healthy, and that's what it's going to take to win a conference championship. You have to have key, point guard play, hopefully a good post inside play, a go-to player, and be in good health. I mean, it's hard to win without all those things being in place. So any given night, one team could have advantage of the other.
Well, and you talk about the travel, and we know it's difficult in this conference. And this weekend, it may be the most difficult for you. That's without looking at every single weekend for you. You'll start off with Potsdam. And, of course, Potsdam's about 4.5 to 5 hours away. You got to get all the way over to Syracuse before you shoot north and go about as far north as you can go in New York without crossing into New York State. I guess you could get all the way up to there's a SUNY up there I'm completely blanking on, but Canton. You could always get up to Canton if you wanted to. Actually, you go past Canton to get to Potsdam. And then after that, you got to go to Plattsburgh, which is even further east. You got to go all the way north of almost north of Burlington, Vermont.
Yeah.
This is a tough trip.
Something miles to Montreal.
Yeah, you're right. You're actually closer to Montreal than you are Albany. This is a difficult trip. At least it's earlier in the season versus later in the season, and so far the weather has been cooperative. But how do you get the guys ready for this and then get them prepped for what will be a brutal back-to-back set of games here?
It's not easy. A lot of movies.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And then, you try to have to plan the eating time, the shoot-around time, and, you don't want to under-rest, you don't want to over-rest, You have to try to get the legs going, moving. So it helps when the weather is, because we've gone through trips. I remember Plattsburgh, snowing. We had one game. I remember a guy late in the game got elbow in the eye, had stitches, so we had to wait in the hospital over an hour, then get on the road to go back, and then Plattsburgh is the furthest. Sometimes we prefer to have Potsdam the second game because at least you're a little bit closer driving back. But like you said, at least it's early. We try to get that trip out the way. But everyone has to do it. All the schools have to do it. The only one that's probably worse than us is Fredonia, which is a little bit almost another hour away going west.
Yeah, that's true.
From there,
real quick, random question for you, only because I find it funny. When you come back from Plattsburgh, do you guys shoot south through 87? Do you go as far south as Albany, or do you shoot over further north and kind of come through the Adirondacks, or do you retrace your steps back through Potsdam?
We go to 87 and head back through Albany and then take the freeway all the way back up. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
It's kind of round and about. But you probably in the car, but in a bus, it's not worth the risk of the back roads and stuff.
You don't want to take Route 8 to 365, huh?
No.
The funny thing is, if you did, you'd go right past my aunt and uncle's house. I mean, literally, right past it on 365. But I know that road, and that's why I asked the question, because in this kind of weather, and that's the other factor for you guys, the weather in upstate and central New York and western New York can change in the drop of a dime just by the wind changing directions. Obviously, that becomes a major factor with a lot of this. What's the craziest weather story with travel that you guys have experienced in your 11 years?
Oh, I think it was an Oneonta game. Yeah, that was the Oneonta game. We lost at the buzzer, and we had the bus driver. It was snowing. He made a wrong turn, and it went down to. And this is we're only literally not even 10 minutes from the campus from Oneonta, and we wind up going into. This looked like a runoff, for a snow route.
Oh.
So we go in, and everybody's kind of down. It's cold, and and I'm looking. I say, I don't remember all these woods. And so the bus gets at this like a gravel and ice, and then he tries to back up, and something happens. The wheel was spinning, and then it just shuts down.
Oh.
So we're kind of talking. We figure, okay, he went the wrong way. We know we're still close to Oneonta. Well, he starts getting the phone. He can't get a signal, and he's not really saying anything. So I told him, look, I got a signal. So he finally admitted that the bus is shut down. He's going to have to call. We had to go get another bus. So we had to call back to Oneonta, and then they had to go send. So before that, I go out on the bus, and the guys, nobody wanted to go out with me, but I said, I got to go knock on the door. So I'm going up this back road and knock on the door, and then the person answered the door. Turned out her dad was a former Buffalo State professor, so she was nice, So it's taken me a while, and she got these nice, dog laughs. So my assistant coaches come out and looking for me. And then the dogs start running. They scared. I don't know what. The dog. They start running. They run into the bus. I mean, it's just. I'm giving you the abbreviated story of it. So we wind up going back to campus. They sent some vans, state vans, and they put us up in the lounge at Oneonta. And then for whatever reason, the gym is dark, but they left the scoreboard on with the score.
That's mean.
So we don't want it. So I think it was getting close to NFL playoff time. It was around this time of year, and I think we were sitting there watching. So finally, we had to wait for a bus to go, and then the bus came from Syracuse somewhere, and then we had to switch another bus in the Binghamton area. So I don't know, it must have been about 3 or 4 in the morning that we got home. But,
that's just brutal. And Oneonta is not easy to get back from to begin with.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
There's a lot more to the story, but that's...
No, that's fine. I got a gist that's one you would like not to repeat in the future.
No.
That's the one I can see coaches printing directions for drivers just to make sure they understand they don't want to repeat of that experience. Before I let you go, though, real quick, I wanted to... Something in your bio that caught my attention was Camp Achieve, something that you're certainly apparently well known about in Western New York. What I found interesting is you're kind of mixing basketball in there with the academics, which is very Division III of that. But can you give us a little bit more of an idea of what Camp Achieve really is?
Well, it actually started when I was coaching high school, and I was doing AAU. And, we had a lot of talent over the years in Western New York, Buffalo area, and I was a little dismayed with some of the players not being prepared to take advantage of scholarship offers, and and even those who were admissible, just not understanding what it requires to be, a scholarship athlete or just a student athlete on a collegiate level. So we started the camp and tried to identify, play, because we couldn't take in as many as we can, although we made it open accessibility. But we would try to service any players who were serious about, their high school career, and then also planning on going to the collegiate level. So we got a lot of colleges and university here, and we got former athletes. So we thought, why not tap into the people who've already have done and been successful in the things that the high school players are trying to do. So that's how it started. We still have a version of it. Since I've been coaching here full time, I couldn't do it to the extent I would like to, but the whole idea is to talk to athletes who are currently in school, scholarship level, or former athletes, and it's also life skills. The things you have to studying, and the whole drugs and sex and alcohol, all of those things that becomes pitfall for a lot of players at the collegiate level.
Sure.
To try to explain to them those things, so at least it's not the first time they're hearing it.
Sure.
Of course, it's always still a challenge once you get away and you got the freedom for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But we at least try to plant that seed, and then just stay as a resource for them and stay in contact with them. And then when the guys go away, they come back in the summertime, and then we still try to work with them that way.
Very good. It's a great thing to be involved with. Certainly applaud your efforts with the season so far. 8-2 overall, 2-1 in conference play. Obviously, the biggest and hardest road trip ahead of you here this weekend. But like I said, it's probably nice to get it out of the way now than it would be later in the season. As always, though, Coach, we give the final word to you, the guest. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Well, I guess it's still early enough to say Happy New Year's to everyone. Wish them a prosperous and healthy year, and hope your best teams win, and Buffalo stays included in that wish. And we're happy. We always enjoy the camaraderie and the coaches and the players. It's really more about life lessons than anything else. Everybody says, winning is not everything, but that's, everybody wants to win. I mean, that sounds good, but everybody wants to win for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah. But with that said, I think the relationship is try to keep them ongoing, and, people can look back and this is some of the best times of their life.
Well said, Coach. Congratulations on the start. Happy New Year to yourself as well. Good luck the rest of the way. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on the SUNYAC, and we'll certainly be keeping an eye on the Bengals the rest of the way, and good luck.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Fazri Ansari joining us here on Hoopsville via the hotline. Again, team is 8-2 overall, 2-1 in conference play. Of course, one of those losses, Point Park, not in Division III. So when we talk about the NCAA record per se, it's actually 8-1. Or I should say 7-1. Cortland State's their only loss in a crazy SUNYAC. I promise you, we'll be talking to plenty SUNYAC coaches the rest of the season. When we come back, we'll go a little bit further west, head into the Great Lakes region, talk about another team on top of their conference that maybe wasn't on everybody's radar. The Hiram Terriers. They've beaten Ohio Wesleyan. They're on top of the NCAC, at least when we talk to them. We'll see what happens, results in between. But on top of the NCAC by a win. We'll talk to their second-year head coach coming up. You're listening to Hoopsville. Presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and NABC studios. More Hoopsville right after this.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. Had plenty of guests so far, plenty to talk about. If you'd like to interact with us, you can always do it via Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. Of course, Hoopsville presented by D3Hoops.com. Coming to you from the WBCA and NABC studios. I want to thank those two partners for jumping on board with Hoopsville. Yet again for the NABC and for the first time for the WBCA. We're going to keep talking men's basketball, sliding west from Buffalo. Not too far west from Buffalo, but we're heading west from Buffalo. And we're going back to the Skype. We always like the Skype here on Hoopsville. Going to talk about a team that not exactly was on everybody's radar at the beginning of the season, especially in their own darn conference. If you've looked at the NCAC rankings, you'll see a few teams up there that you certainly expected to see. One of them would be Ohio Wesleyan. Wittenberg's recovered nicely this year. Worcester's having a non-Worcester year, but still playing pretty darn well. Did you notice the team at the top? It's Hiram. They're 4-1. with a win over Ohio Wesleyan. How dare they? Well, that gets you on Hoopsville, though. The Terriers certainly deserve the attention. And I know they're getting the attention in the top 25 polls, so you know what? We better go to the Skype and talk to their head coach, second year as head coach, fifth year of the program. Chris Kibler joins us on Hoopsville. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time. Again, how dare you be on top of the NCAC? You and I were talking pre-show, as it were, pre-taping. You told me the conference lovingly picked you 10th out of, I believe it's 10. That must have gone over well.
Well, it wasn't too surprising for me. I mean, I kind of figured we might get 9th. So 10th wasn't too surprising, but for the players, obviously gave them a little bit of motivation, I'm sure.
Sure. Yeah, just a little bit. But let's be honest. You guys, I don't think we're expecting, as we head into the real meat of the schedule, and especially the conference, to be 4-1, sitting on top of the conference by a half game by the win column, have a win over Ohio Wesleyan under your belt, having beaten DePaul, beaten Wabash, beaten Kenyon and Allegheny, you lost Allegheny. We'll get back to that. I think the loss to Allegheny was probably more expected than what you've done with the wins.
Correct. Yeah, that would Ohio Wesleyan was a special game. To be honest with you, though, we really did feel like we'd have a shot to win that game. Now, did we go into it thinking we were going to? Absolutely not. They're really good.
Yeah.
I've told a lot of people they're fun to watch. They're not real fun to prepare for. But if you go back last year, we went down to their place, and they had lost to Trine after being 8-0. And, I was kind of disappointed because I thought, well, there was our opportunity.
Yeah.
Trine just woke up a sleeping giant. This year, that didn't happen. They were 8-0, and I thought, well, we're going to have our opportunity. If we can play really hard and catch them on the right day and we can shoot the ball well, we'll have a chance. And it just played out that way, and, they had a shot at the buzzer to win it, and luckily it didn't go in. We had a couple buzzer beaters that went against us last year, and so that would have been devastating to have another one this early in the season.
Yeah.
But definitely an exciting, great win for our program.
In some ways, very even in that game. Rebounding was even. Assists were even. Turnovers relatively even. You had a few more than they did. No big deal. Points off turnovers was even. Second chance points even. Points in the paint, you guys outscored them by 8. Fast break even. Bench points, you had more than 10. But I think the big one was they shot a little bit more poorly than you guys did. But, man, you guys left a few points on the free throw line, too. So, statistically, you weigh all those things out. The score is not that surprising. 2-point victory. The problem is the cat's out of the bag. You win that game, and so now everyone's like, okay, maybe Hiram's for real. The difference is you kept that momentum going. Now, granted, Ohio Wesleyan was the last conference game that you played. You played 3. You lost to Allegheny. You played a couple of non-conference games, but you go in and you beat Wabash by 16. You go beat the now, granted, depleted DePaul squad from last year, but we know Bill Fenlon's got a well-coached squad there. You beat them by 31.
Yeah, both those programs, there's been a high turnover for Wabash. And DePaul kind of reminds me of Wittenberg from last year. A lot of talented players, but in new roles. And so I feel like it's going to take them that first time through the conference to kind of adjust and know what their role is and how to play together. But there's certainly still a lot of talent on that roster. And obviously Coach Fenlon's a great Hall of Fame coach. So I would certainly anticipate the next time through the conference that they'll start to come together, very similar to what happened, I think, last year with Wittenberg. Had graduated a lot of kids the year before, still had a lot of talent coming back, but the chemistry of playing together and figuring that out took them till the second half of the season. And people look at Wittenberg's overall record last year, which is maybe down for them. They certainly had a good team. It took them half a season to get it going.
Before I will talk more about the conference, but you are playing Bill Fenlon, the man who's famous for the 3v2 rule. If you're down 3 or you're winning by 3, do you foul to keep him from getting a 3 at a certain point in the game? I'm curious, do you dare even ask him in game, 9 seconds left, yell down the sideline, Coach, what would you do? Is this the time do you dare do that with him?
No, I don't dare do that. But our conference, we've got 5 of these guys.
Yeah.
conference with Bill Brown, Steve Moore, Mike DeWitt, Bill Fenlon, Bob Geloni. Those guys are all Hall of Fame coaches, and when they talk, they're kind of like E.F. Hutton. Everybody listens. Whether that's our coaches' meetings or even on the sideline. Sometimes they're yelling at their guys, and I'm listening to them, and I'm turning around like maybe I need to be saying that to my guys.
I was going to say, do you go down to their huddle and listen to half the timeout, then come back up? Yeah, that's when you don't want the 30-second timeout. There's not enough time to do all of that.
That's right.
This conference is crazy this year. Obviously, Ohio Wesleyan was the favorite coming in. Everybody knew Worcester was going to lose some and not fall back to the pack necessarily, but they've certainly fallen back to the pack. They're not playing Scots basketball that everybody's familiar with. Wittenberg has finally recovered after a bit of a tough start last year. They woke up in the second half and are certainly playing well now. We talked about DePaul kind of being off their game a little bit, but Denison's in the mix. Oberlin's in the mix. Wabash certainly is having a weird year, 7-5 overall, but 1-4 in conference. Listen, the Great Lakes has got a couple of fascinating races, the MIAA, the OAC, but the NCAC is... I think at first, as I get longer with this darn question, at first everyone thought it was going to be Ohio Wesleyan and then a battle for everything else. Now it just seems like it's going to be a battle, period, for the top 4 or 5 spots.
Well, Ohio Wesleyan, I think, is still our flagship program this year. And, Worcester is probably next with the standpoint. They still got some fantastic players, and they've added an incredible freshman class that's getting a lot of minutes this year. And that doesn't traditionally happen at Worcester. Usually they get fantastic freshmen, but they still got to wait their turn.
Yes.
I had a coach tell me this year that, they felt like they had one of their best recruiting classes in 25 years. And if that plays itself out to be true, it wouldn't surprise me. That it is a good freshman class. It might be a year in Worcester terms that it's down because
by their
15-6.
Right, by their standards.
Yes, by their standards.
Yes.
But I still think they're probably the second team in our conference. And then after that, I do think that there's some races with maybe Wittenberg being that third team. That's who we play on Saturday. So, we get a little clearer picture come Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Wittenberg will be well prepared for us, as they always are. And
sure.
Last year was the first time we had swept them in school history. And we got the game got pushed back to a Sunday. And we go down there, basically win the game with 4 seconds to go. Just a strange ending to a game, and that knocked them out of hosting that first round game. They had to go to DePaul, who went on to win the conference championship, and then went to the national tournament and beat the number 2 team in the country on the road. And so it's a tough conference, but the picture will get a little bit clearer as we start to. We're not even one round through the conference play, and if you look at our schedule, we're going to Wittenberg, to Worcester, to Oberlin, and then we'll host Denison our next 4. So outside of the Ohio Wesleyan loss, we're probably playing the top half of the conference as we go through these next 4.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot to be determined, and where we fall and all of that is still largely to be considered as well.
Just because some fans might be going, second team, just to correct, DePaul beat WashU, who I can understand maybe second. They were 14th. Okay. They beat WashU in the first round, and then they got the honor of going to play Augustana, who was 6th, who ended up finishing second in the country, and they had a great game there. I just want to do that because I know there's somebody listening and going, wait a minute.
That guy, what's he doing?
What's he talking about? Obviously, this is your second-year head coach. Took over for Coach Fleming, Steve Fleming, a couple seasons ago. You were an assistant under him for 3 years prior to that. It's not like you're not familiar with this conference. You didn't play in it. You played at Baldwin Wallace over in the OAC, but you know this conference. You know this region. Does this job kind of feel comfortable in that sense, despite playing in that other Ohio conference?
Yeah, well, I wasn't really even a player at Baldwin Wallace.
Well, that's okay. I was just trying to give you a better resume.
I'm very familiar with the conference. I was Steve Bankston's assistant for 8 years in the OAC. I grew up in New Concord watching Muskingum basketball under Jim Burson. And then, to come over to the North Coast Athletic Conference under Steve Fleming. I've been blessed to have been a part of great programs. I was assistant at Gannon University Division II up in Erie. We were nationally ranked. So I've recruited Northeast Ohio and all of Ohio for 22 years. It took me 19. I joke all the time. It took me 19 years to get the first opportunity to be a head coach, and I'm certainly enjoying it now. But yeah, I think the conference, the OAC always kind of had the bragging rights of being a better conference, top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And the North Coast was top heavy. You had
Yeah.
your Wittenbergs, OWU, and Worcester, obviously. And then there'd be their fourth team. And then after that, there was a drop off. And
Yeah.
I think in the last 4 or 5 years, with a little bit of alignment shift in our conference,
Yeah.
the quality of coaches that have come into the conference. Again, we've got 5 of them that I'm sure are Hall of Famers. And then you've got some maybe a little bit younger bucks that are trying to emulate or get to that level. And so the conference has just gotten really top bottom. Again, we're picked 10th. And while we currently sit in first, the win over Ohio Wesleyan shows, hey, on any given night in the North Coast Athletic Conference, anybody can beat anybody.
No, that's absolutely the case, and you guys have already certainly proven that. Gone a long way here. We haven't even talked about your team. Let's talk about them just a little bit. Got a handful of seniors on this squad, but certainly a young team. Actually, you have there are 2 seniors on this team, but one of them, well, you know what? I think I've got, well, who knows? We'll just go through what I'm reading anyway. Okay. You're led by a senior in J.J. Woodson, 18.5 points a game, pulling down 5 rebounds a game as well, nearly 3 steals a game, nearly 2 assists a game. Obviously, he's the catalyst and the key. But you also have a sophomore, Paul Ortiz, 13 points a game nearly. You have Kelvin Jones, a sophomore, nearly 10 points a game, nearly 10 rebounds a game. He's literally a smidge under a double-double in both categories. Trey Sanders, also a sophomore, 6.3 points a game, 6 points a game from Kyle Deckard, a junior, though he's injured. I apologize for mentioning Kyle. Sorry, Kyle. Looking forward to seeing you back when you get there. Jeremiah Thomas is who I wanted to mention, junior at 5.6 points a game. So what I'm basically going around on is J.J. Woodson's your senior. He's your all-everything guy. And then you've got a ton of underclassmen here who are learning a lot this season. That's got to bode well.
It is. And, actually, I'm driving my SID crazy here because we started the season off. We went down and played Akron. And, dummy me, I didn't realize we could play that as an exhibition game and still keep the game that we had.
Yeah.
That's another Division III. If I'd have known that, we'd have done that. But,
welcome to coaching.
Yeah. we lose that game 100-30, and people were wondering, well, you went in, you tried to press them, and 28 seconds to go, and we're fouling when they got the ball down 98-30, and people were wondering, what's this guy doing? But we had a goal. We won 90 possessions in that game, and by fouling, we got one more offensive possession, and we reached our goal. And
there you
go.
That's what those games are for.
That's right. The kids enjoy it. It was fun and so forth. But I got my SID here running around doing our overall stats, but then our Division III stats. So we take that.
Oh, he loves you.
JJ's averaging 20, and Paul is averaging 14, and Kelvin Jones is averaging 11. And so I'm loving it because other teams are looking at our stats, and they're a little bit lower than what they probably are because that Akron game, obviously, we didn't play very well. Not that it would make much of a difference. 2 days later, they went down to Arkansas and laid it on them as well.
Yeah. Well, your SID's pleased.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure if I reached out to him, he'd say the same. But, I mean, that is something that's a valid point. I mean, obviously, that game could have been an exhibition. That's something that changed last year or heading into this year, I should say. But outside of that game, you've got a lot of weapons here that I don't think – a lot of them are sophomores, and maybe that's the key here. You guys were finished 10th because you had a bunch of talent that's going to be a sophomore. It's hard to read a sophomore. They're either going to come out of their freshman year, if they had a good freshman year, and either be really good or get that sophomore slump. Clearly not getting that sophomore slump here.
Yeah, there's no doubt that the improvements of, I think, Trey Sanders as our backup point guard, playing with a lot of confidence. He's got a lot of moxie. And then our junior, Joe Caspio, he's coming in and providing a highlight film behind Kelvin, who's going to be really special himself. And it's hard for Joe because he's a true center, and it's hard to get minutes behind a kid as good as Kelvin. The Wabash game was the first time we could play both of them together, and he's not out there a minute, and he's got 2 dunks, and place is going crazy for him, and he's just such an unselfish kid. And that's really, a lot of these kids, JT Thomas, you've mentioned, went from being a starter, undersized at the 4, to move back out to where he belongs at the 3. Playing just a few minutes less, but his average is down. That kid just, he's a winner. He just wants to be a part of a winner. He's a team guy. A lot of unselfishness on this team for sure.
Let's talk about the down the road part, which you hinted at. You've got a very interesting schedule the rest of the way. First off, you do kind of enter the fray here, as it were. You're at Wittenberg on Saturday. You're at Worcester next week. You're at Oberlin the following Saturday. Then you're home for 3, Denison, Kenyon, Allegheny. Then you're on the road for 3, Ohio Wesleyan, Wabash, DePaul. Then you're home for 2, Worcester, Oberlin. On the road for Denison, at home for Wittenberg. I'm used to seeing some crazy schedules out of conferences that have to do a lot of travel. I can't remember a time I've seen a conference like yourself where you're set up to go 3 road, 3 home, 2 road. Yeah, and just that sequence, that can be really good because you'll get into a groove. It can also throw you off completely when you get out of that groove.
Yeah. We're heading into the grind for sure with these road games. But we, by design, we've only had 9. We're only going to have 9 home games this year.
Yeah.
I really like my sophomore class, and I just said, hey, let's make these guys road warriors. Let's get them prepared for as they move into their junior, senior year. And so with only 9 home games, obviously we got 16 on the road, and I think our guys are starting to relish the opportunity to play on the road, and that's exactly what we wanted to get out of that.
Well, you are heading into the Lions' Den with Wittenberg and Worcester, obviously, in the next 2. Certainly key games if you want to stay on top because they're right behind you in the conference. So what are you telling the team? Is this obviously I'm going to hear the coach speak, it's a game-by-game scenario. But at the same time, you got to prep them for 2 very tough and potentially 3, because Oberlin's not going to be exactly easy on the road either, games that are going to have a big say with what the rest of this conference race is going to be like. So what is the message to the squad, both in the locker room and, well, now, because they're probably going to listen?
Yeah. I hope they listen. That's always a challenge. With this team, they're competitors. And so spending a lot of time to find ways to challenge them. Told them after the wins against Wabash and DePaul, said, hey, that's great, but this isn't Wittenberg, Worcester, and even Oberlin. Those 2 programs, while still very good, are playing a lot of young guys. Wittenberg, Oberlin, and Worcester. Worcester's just Worcester, no matter if they're young or not.
Yeah.
But with Oberlin and Wittenberg, they got a lot of returning guys, and so they got to understand now with the like you had mentioned, we got to stay the hunter, and we got to keep going after teams. And I think our guys very well understand. They had Wabash circle because we had a double overtime loss at their place.
Yeah.
And then we had a 3-quarter shot loss here against them. And so, they were really had that game circled on the calendar. And our guys understand Wittenberg has that same feeling for us, beating them twice last year. And so that's the challenge is, okay, can you go on the road when everybody now is not going to be, you're not unknown. Everybody's very aware of what we've done to this point, and obviously they've got a little bit of a revenge factor. And so I anticipate it to be a hard-fought game, but at the same time, we're telling them, hey, we're making no excuses. Let's go see what we're made of, and we'll go from there. It's not an end-all. If we win, that's great. It doesn't mean a whole lot. And if we lose, it doesn't mean a whole lot because there's just so much left of the season still to be determined. It'd be a great win. It'd be a tough loss, but wouldn't be a disappointing loss because, again, it's on the road, and it's that time of year we always talk to the guys about, hey, this is where a lot of teams hit the wall. And good teams find a way to bust through that wall and keep performing, keep showing up to practice to get better every day.
Well, and like we said, you were picked to finish 10th. While you probably didn't agree with the 10th spot, it's not like you were picked to finish in the top 4, so you're already playing with house money at this point.
Yeah, I feel that way. The players don't.
Oh, of course not. No. That's for the coach speak. That's for the analysts like myself to say, not for the players. Players want to disagree with that wholeheartedly, and I get that. Hey, Coach, I really appreciate you coming on the show, especially via Skype. It's always fun to see a coach when we're chatting with them. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Well, I just, I'll say to you guys, what you guys do is nothing short of spectacular for D3 basketball. I'm kind of in some ways jealous and envious of you guys. You guys get to watch these games and these players. So many good players and good teams and good coaches. And I always say all the time that Herb Street has the job I'd like to have if I could have a job in the country.
Sure.
Next to that, it might be what you guys do at the Division III level. You get to do all this, and then you don't have to face the pressure of losing or the pressure to try to win games and championships. So I just want to thank you guys for what you guys do, and I hope people continue to support Division III basketball. Obviously, I don't think a lot of people understand how good the level of basketball is, not only in the North Coast Athletic Conference, but across the country at the Division III level.
I agree with you certainly on that last part, but I have 415 schools to try and keep track of. Trust me, it's not easy. Remember this Hiram squad? Didn't see it coming. Coach, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the season, especially the upcoming games. Look forward to watching the Terriers the rest of the way and seeing how this race shapes up. And take care and stay safe on the roads as well.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it. Happy New Year.
You too. Chris Kibler joining us here from Hiram. Again, 10-2 start, 4-1. Notice a lot of the conversation there about the youth of this conference. Worcester's young. Wittenberg's young. Hiram is young. Denison, DePaul. I mean, you start going through these schools. Ohio Wesleyan's the only one with a lot of senior leadership. This is going to be fun to watch, not only this year, but the next few years. When we come back, we'll wrap up Hoopsville here on this special Thursday show since it's not live, and we hope you're enjoying it. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and NABC studios. More Hoopsville right after this.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor's Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you've been enjoying the show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Obviously, this taped version of the show is, once again, I'm at my responsibilities. 20 years of public address announcer at Goucher College. I wanted to be there for the game, especially against Catholic. And so we find ways to sometimes put these shows together ahead of time. So if you have missed any topics tonight, I greatly apologize for that. But we'll be back on the air Sunday live at 7 o'clock and do our best to catch up. One thing we teased at the beginning of the show in our rather long first block was that Pat Coleman was at Elmhurst, where he got a couple of interviews for us. One of them, Pat Coleman interviewed Pat Coleman. Seems a little confusing. Well, that's because Elmhurst has a point guard named Pat Coleman. So Pat Coleman, while at Elmhurst, decided you better interview Pat Coleman. Here he is.
Back on Hoopsville, and I couldn't come to Elmhurst without talking to Pat Coleman. So yeah, I'm Pat Coleman, and he's Pat Coleman. So for the past 4 years, you've been making a name for yourself here at Elmhurst. You could probably tell no relation, but tell us a little bit about this game. You guys defeat Augustana 77-75. First of all, you came out with a little bit of a flurry right away early in the game.
Well, I just really wanted to get it going. You know, this was a big game. We've been looking forward to it all week. And this is always a fun game to play in. Every year I've been here, it's always been a great game. So you just look forward to coming in here and playing as hard as you can, coming out with the win.
Fantastic finish to regulation, a really solid overtime. But I thought one of the highlights tonight was the fact that your fans stormed the court twice. What's it like having that kind of student population support behind you?
Those guys are great. We support them a lot. That was really all the football team. So we're at their games doing the same thing for them. So it's good that they come out and help us out. They really got us through this game. They helped us out a lot.
Overtime, a bit of a nail biter, and of course the way regulation ended, which I know we've talked about on the show already, so I won't rehash it. But take us through overtime a little bit. It's a kind of a nail biter back and forth. I don't think you guys even scored in the final 2.5 minutes there.
Well, we knew they were coming at us. They had the chance after they called the shot off to go into overtime and win the game. So we knew they were going to give us their best shot just like we gave them our best shot. So we just tried to defend as best as we could, and I think we did, and we came out with the win.
What did Coach Baines say to you guys after the regulation? Because that had to be, something that's kind of toying with your emotions a little bit.
We got 5 more minutes. Play as hard as you can. Don't forget the game plan.
Yep. So early on in this season for you guys, right? But off to a 12-1 start. I guess this is pretty much officially the halfway point of the regular season, but you guys have a lot of conference games left.
Yeah. So, we're just going to try to get out here and play as hard as we can, just like we did tonight. Don't take anyone, no nights off, take anyone for advantage. So we're going to try to keep this up the rest of the season and see where we land at the conference tournament.
All right, he's Pat Coleman, so am I, here at Elmhurst, where the 5th-ranked Blue Jays defeated the #1 Vikings by the score of 77-75 in overtime.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it. Kind of fun. Obviously not related. Unless there's something crazy. Pat Coleman's not related to Pat Coleman, but it is nice to see Pat Coleman and Pat Coleman side by side. I want to thank Pat for his work out there at Elmhurst to get us content for tonight after the big game against #1 v. #5. Appreciate his hard work through and through. It's also nice to have Pat now fully on board with basketball, is it not? Usually the Vegas Classic is the first point where we get to see Pat fully involved. Gordon and I go, oh, Pat's back from football. Of course, Gordon and I are dabbling in football as well, but Pat now fully on board with hoops, and we're glad to have him back on the staff, as it were. Not that he left, it's just the way of saying things. Top 25 is something we did not really dive into at the beginning of the show. Obviously talked about the Elmhurst win, but I wanted to talk about the top 25s in general. Real quick, nothing major has happened this week. We do have some conversations to be had as voters. On the women's side, Thomas More, unanimous #1. But by the way, I don't remember the last time Thomas More was unanimous #1 along with Augustana, both unanimous. Obviously that will change for Augustana coming up, but I don't remember the last time we've had unanimous #1s midway through a season. It's probably happened. I just don't remember it. It's not something that's triggered in my mind. We obviously get it at the end of seasons when championships have been held, but it's very rare to get them mid-season with all the results. Not that uncommon on the women's side, more uncommon on the men's side. But to have them simultaneously is I believe, very rare. I'm sure some of the top 25 gurus out there who track all this stuff will be able to get back to me on that. I've even thought about tracking it myself, but I haven't had the time yet. Can get back to me. But congratulations to both programs. And for Thomas More, they continue to win. Beat Bethany 118-66 this week. They'll take on a tougher Washington and Jefferson squad coming up later in the week. We don't have any losses from any of the top 25 until you get down to number 13. Some teams haven't played, but Oshkosh will take on, lost to River Falls, I should say, earlier this week. Albright lost to Amherst. That's not a surprise. Amherst was number 2, so Albright probably shouldn't fall in the polls too much for a loss like that, even though it was by 15. And then Montclair lost to Rowan. Now, Rowan's certainly getting some top 25 attention. Montclair, though, has been a very good team in that conference, and a little surprised to see them lose at this point in the season. More surprising, though, is they lost by 28, 78-50. That is fascinating, to say the least. The only other loss on the women's side, DePaul in the receiving votes category, lost to Denison by 9. So DePaul dropping to 10-4. On the men's side of things, a little bit busier. Obviously, we talked about Augustana losing to Elmhurst. We're going to have to go all the way down to number 19 before you find the next loss. That is Eau Claire losing to Stevens Point. Stevens Point losing to Eau Claire. 59-63 by 16 points. Stevens Point most likely out of the top 25 after that. They do have a big game against Whitewater, who's ranked number 15 right now, coming up. That'll certainly maybe save them. I don't know. I'm a little surprised Whitewater's at 15 at 10-2. They haven't played anybody necessarily. I'm also surprised Stevens Point entering the week at 7-4 was still in. A lot of love for the defending champs, but even the defending champs will tell you they're not the same. They're now down to 7-5. Oswego State entered the week 8-1. They played one game and they got thumped by 38. Oneonta State beat them 90-52 at Oneonta State. I know it's not the easiest travel trip, but the weather hasn't been that bad. Obviously, we talked about coming out of Oneonta State there with Buffalo State's Fazri Ansari. But 38 points, not good for Oswego. They'll come out of the top 25 with that result, but that SUNYAC race is just crazy. Trine lost to Calvin. Now, remember, I said it in Vegas. I said it after Vegas. I've said it recently. Calvin is better than their record. So the loss to Trine isn't a bad loss for Trine. But for Calvin, it's certainly showing that they're going to stay in the mix. Trine, on the other hand, I think is a very, very good team. I think that's a 4-horse race in the MIAA, believe it. I think it's going to be Hope, Trine, and Elma, with Calvin playing spoiler in that top 4. I think Calvin's going to be in the mix. And again, I don't think Hope comes out of the top 25, or comes out of the conference play undefeated. Whitman lost to Whitworth. Whitworth obviously being the number 2 there. Good result for Whitman, but they can't seem to get over the chokehold that Whitworth has on that conference. Receiving votes category, Trinity lost yet again, this time to Plattsburgh State. William Patterson lost again to Kane. They're 7-5 now. I'm not sure who's still voting for William Patterson, the craziness that's happened there. Stockton lost to New Jersey City. Hint, hint, we may have our guest for Sunday, New Jersey City. Eastern Nazarene lost, I believe, their second in a row, this time to Salve Regina. That's just disappointing if you're Eastern Nazarene and whoever's voting for him. Yeah, I understand the loss to WPI. That's a tough team, WPI nationally ranked. But you should be beating Salve Regina. You really should be beating Salve Regina, especially for an Eastern Nazarene squad that's got that many seniors on it who understand you got to be ready for all the games. Or I thought they understood that. Surprising result there. Southern Vermont having not a rough season, but certainly below expectations. Already taken up their 3rd loss with a loss to Middlebury by 18 points. They fall to 8-3. I don't think that's the season Southern Vermont expected. Granted, part of that is the Hoopsville Classic, but part of that was because we wanted them, and they wanted the schedule at the Hoopsville Classic. And then Geneseo lost to Fredonia State to add into that SUNYAC craziness down there as well. So that's your top 25 look per se. Should mention at the beginning of the show, and I forgot to, but I think you may have sensed it throughout the show, we are now finally back into our regional set, as it were, on this show. Beginning of the year, hard to do that when there's so much to talk about. But, and that we're not consistently on a Thursday or a Sunday simultaneously in the same week. As a result, now that we're now kind of into gear on Thursdays, you can expect us to talk to an East, Mid-Atlantic, Great Lakes, and West team, along potentially with South teams when we can't, due to travel and game schedules, get them onto a Sunday show. So you'll hear that. You'll also get in the future, starting next week, the NABC Coaches Corner. On Sundays, you will hear from the Northeast, the Atlantic, the Central, and the South. That's where we tend to have our South team. You'll also get a chance now, starting this week, with the new WBCA partnership. You'll hear from the WBCA Center Court, where we'll shine a light on a coach in the WBCA ranks. So that's our breakdown for Thursdays and Sundays from now on. Yes, we will talk about other topics on every show, but our guests primarily will come for those specific regions on those specific days. That way, we are able to cover all the regions and try and do it in as fair a manner as possible. It allows us to be as diverse as we can with our guests and not get stuck talking about the same teams and the same regions every single show. This allows us to talk about as many of the 430 schools or 845 programs that exist in Division III on such a simple show. So get used to that now. So Sunday we will be talking North. You can expect our guests to be from the Northeast, the Atlantic, the South, and the Central region. Now the NABC Coaches Corner and the WBCA Center Court, don't stick to that policy. We will get those coaches from wherever we feel it is necessary, but just gives you an idea of how our scheduling goes. Of course, you can always follow us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville, where you can follow along and find out who our guests are when we find out, etc., etc. That's going to do it for us. Long show, we realize. I want to thank everybody for their help and their support with it. Of course, our guests, Muhlenberg's Ron Roan, Cal Lutheran's Lindsay Goldblat, Buffalo State's Fazri Ansari, and Hiram's Chris Kibler. And I want to thank their sports information departments as well. All of them were tremendous in helping us get our guests lined up via Skype from Muhlenberg and Hiram, and just lined up in general, especially on the West Coast coming out of Cal Lu. The timing can be a little bit tough sometimes. I want to thank everybody for their help in helping us put this show together. Also, again, thanks to Pat Coleman for his work out at Elmhurst to send us back some interviews that we could use here on the show covering the big game that it was on Wednesday, number 1B, number 5. We will be returning live on Sunday at 7 o'clock. A reminder, next Thursday's show will once again be pre-taped, as we will be out at the NCAA convention in San Antonio and getting in some D3 basketball games while we are out there. Then we will be back on the air Sunday, having returned from Texas that day with a bit of a Texas-heavy show, a little bit of an NCAA-heavy show, depending on interviews that we get out there. But we'll also try and sprinkle in some other interviews while we are at it, including the WBCA Center Court. That's going to do it for us. If we've missed something, I apologize. Obviously, being a pre-taped show and trying to get this on the air for you, we aren't going to hit everything, but we hope you enjoyed the show nonetheless. You have been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. I want to once again thank the WBCA and NABC for their tremendous support of this show and what we do to try and shine a light on Division III basketball. We appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts, and it allows us to do things like head to Texas to see basketball games, something we just simply could not do on our own. And for both organizations, I want to thank you very, very much. Don't forget, again, interact with us or follow the show on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Also on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. And you can always email us if you want to interact or have questions or whatever. The email address is hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Again, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. That's going to do it. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoy the rest of the week of basketball. We'll be back here Sunday night, talk it all over, and see who we think will be the number one team on the men's side. I may have changed my mind from what I said at the beginning of this show. You just never know. You've been listening to Hoopsville. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and good night.